Are you guys ready for Nintendo Prime Podcast? Episode 8!
How's it going, everyone? Hopefully everything's working. It better be. If it's not, I'm going to have to go and kill the stream gods tonight. We have another live podcast for you guys, episode number 8 of the Nintendo Prime Podcast. As always, you could go check out our podcast everywhere that podcasts are had. Obviously, we got our video version here live on YouTube, either tonight or tomorrow. It'll also be up on iTunes, Anchor.fm, the Google Play, whatever app. Their little podcast app. Pretty much everywhere. I think it's even on Spotify. We are everywhere that podcasts can be. So, that being said, welcome. We have a special guest today, as always, because we don't do podcasts without guests. What's a podcast without a guest?
Right.
I mean, I guess it's a podcast because some people just have really good co-hosts. Is that a slant against you, Eric, or is it a slant against me?
Oh.
Anyways, Eric Moore across the away from me.
Oh.
He'll be the one that will be with us for the entirety of our E3 coverage. And speaking of E3 coverage, we're going to have Mr. AndresRestart, who's up on the screen here for you guys. Welcome, man.
Good evening, man. How you doing?
Pretty good. We got some awesome stuff to talk about today. I'm pretty pumped about it.
Yeah, hope you guys can hear me correctly. Looked like there was like a little bit of like audio stuttering at first. Hopefully it kind of smoothed out.
Yeah, I hope so. It sounds
Okay,
good to
cool.
me.
Cool,
So
cool.
welcome. So yeah, he's going to be joining us as well live during some of our E3 coverage. So that's going to be exciting as well. And also be sure to check out his channel for all of his videos, E3 coverage. He does kind of like me. He covers the rumors. He covers the things he wants to talk about. He put out a video, I think, earlier today. So go check that one out if you guys have.
Yeah, that was all like third party stuff, kind of like third party collaborations and things of that nature, like the whole Nintendo Microsoft thing, Bayonetta 3, whatever Mercury Steam is working on, maybe a new Sonic game, maybe a new Mario Rabbids game. So yeah, check it out.
Yeah, awesome. So we got a bunch of topics for today. We'll be talking about those Donkey Kong rumors. We got Monolith Soft as well. Some of those rumors are heating up. They're not really new rumors, but it's more like there's just more sources for those rumors now than there was before. So kind of like with Donkey Kong. There's some slightly new information with Donkey Kong, but it's really just more sources piling up from trusted outlets and all that jazz. So we have that to talk about. We're going to speculate, of course, about E3 2021 because guess what, guys? We are 1 month away from E3! Yeah!
Yeah.
Are you guys excited?
I'm very excited. I can't wait. It's every day things are just getting increasingly more and more interesting. The rumors are piling up, the news are piling up, and I personally think this is going to be a very, very strong showing, at least from Nintendo. There's a lot we're hearing about.
Oh, yeah. So it's pretty exciting, guys. 1 month away from our E3 extravaganza as well. You guys don't know what that is. We're putting on a show within a show. Yeah, of course, we're reacting to everything. You can see all of the Nintendo stuff, Microsoft, Sega, Square. All of it's going to be right here at Nintendo Prime, live as it happens, us reacting to it, you guys reacting with us as well. We have all of our giveaways, $3,500 plus worth of giveaways, growing every single day. And we have just exciting competitions going on. Hot Chip Challenge between Eric and I, where loser in Smash gets to, on day 1, by the way, during the pre-show. So someone's going to be suffering for like the next 10 hours of that stream. I mean, Eric's like, I can handle it, no problem. We'll see. He's probably going to beat me, so then I have to handle it. And I'm the one that does a lot of the talking. So yeah, that'd be awesome. I'll make it happen.
Does that mean I have to throw it?
Nah. we will keep some milk on hand nearby just in case.
Yeah.
That is the go-to. I also like have a little bit of celery sticks sometimes help a little bit for me as well. So we'll have that going on. We also have competitions for you guys where you can play against Eric or I in things like Mario Kart, Smash, etc. And win prizes. Unfortunately, I can't have every single one of you play. It's going to be a sign-up sheet that happens during the show, and then we will just pick a random person off that sheet, and hopefully they reply to us. So one thing you're going to want to do is head down to the description and find the link to our Discord server, because that's where I'm going to be nabbing people to send them my friend code and get things set up on the Smash end of things or whatever game we end up playing, because my friend code is not going to go public. I've done that before. It's a mistake. It's a mistake. So, that being said, let's get into the show. Shall we start with the new stuff that happened today? The Donkey Kong? That's kind of the new stuff today, right? I mean, it's not new for me. Not new for Andre. But it's
Nope.
new for like everyone else that doesn't believe people like Samus Hunter because they think that they're full of shit.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I don't
Like
get it.
there's these. Okay, can we just talk about Samus Hunter for a moment? There are these people that are out on Reddit like trying to argue that Samus Hunter is not real and not legit. Is just posting other people's shit, and they put up a thread where there's 8 different things that Samus Hunter posted that other people posted first, right? So you'd be like, oh, she's just stealing it. But what about the other 40 things she's posted?
Mm-hmm.
One of them being Donkey Kong. She was the first person to post about Donkey Kong, and this was back in January that she actually first mentioned a new DK game. So it's one of those things that's like, okay, yeah, so multiple people that have connections are saying things. It doesn't mean that one's fake and one's not, right?
Right.
All I care about, by the way, because I'm not Samus Hunter, I don't know who she's talking to. I have an idea of who she's talking to, but I don't know. I'm not her.
Right.
What I do know is that everything she puts out there ends up becoming happening, real, legit. And for our purposes as a channel, covering rumors, covering news, trying to get information out there, all I care is that what we're reporting has a high likelihood of being correct. And what she puts out has a high likelihood of being correct. So, the funny thing is, one of the things that she put out, the Donkey Kong stuff, essentially got the confirmation everyone was waiting for today before it's announced. Because it's probably getting announced at E3, from what it sounds like. It's going to be one of the E3 announcements.
I like it.
So let's get you all caught up here. So the original rumor from Samus Hunter was that we were getting a new Donkey Kong game being made by the Super Mario Odyssey team, EPD Tokyo. Okay, awesome. That's already exciting in and of itself, right?
Mhm.
That's a team that makes awesome games, and Odyssey is obviously a very well received game. So that's exciting. So we have that happening, right? And then they go on to say there's going to be 3D elements in the game. Now, does that mean that it's a 3D Donkey Kong game? Maybe. It could also just be like Tropical Freeze, which was, side-scrolling, but had 3D elements in the game.
Mhm.
So Samus Hunter never said it was a 3D Donkey Kong game.
Right.
Just said, hey, 3D was brought up. Doesn't mean that, it might not mean what you think it does. Well, then today, there's been other people that talked about it. Zippo talked about the DK stuff. So did Zippo is a leaker out on Reset Era. And then another person brought it up. Lonely Goomba brought it up on Twitter.
Nice.
But Lonely Goomba said, I don't believe it, right? So Lonely Goomba's like, I'm just hearing about this stuff, and I don't think it's real. Well, Nintendo Life. You guys know about that outlet? I don't know if you know about it. They're like the
Never heard of it.
number one
Right,
Nintendo
totally heard
news
of it.
website in the world. Not even based in the U.S. For those who don't realize that. They're out in the U.K. But
Mhm.
here's the thing. They covered the rumors, and they said, oh, by the way, we have heard the exact same thing that all these other people are saying from our own independent source who we have verified and is legit and is basically someone they have gotten a bunch of correct information from in the past. So Nintendo Life has their own source that probably works at Nintendo that is telling them, yeah, this is real. The only thing they said that their source clarified is that it will be a 2D side-scrolling game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what Nintendo Life is saying. Now, Nintendo Life did say, hey, but, that's just what he's telling us. It could also be a little smoke, little smoke coverage. He could be saying 2D to bring expectations down and then blow you out with a 3D. That's something that Nintendo might do if they are being contacted and trying to confirm this kind of stuff. So that's what... and then we got Andre over here. Has a little tidbit of his own.
Yeah. So, everything that you said is like, what we've heard about. Like we were kind of talking about Donkey Kong since like January, right? Maybe even a little bit before then. I mean, I'll just tell you like straight up. I've been talking about the premise of a new Donkey Kong on Switch for probably a couple of years. But in terms of like hearing like that something's actually happening, it's been the last few months, at least throughout 2021. And then more recently, both you and I, we heard about Samus Hunter. We put our what we heard from that. And she spoke to me privately about that a little bit more. But I'll also say I've personally heard things that are, private, that have corroborated all of that information. And just for the record, other things Samus Hunter has said as well. So basically, like from different angles in terms of like the logic of everything Samus Hunter has said, it all seems like something that I would predict to happen, right? But then there's also the angle of just this consistent track record. And then there's the fact that all of her things line up with other insiders that are known publicly. And then what I've personally heard, right, which of course take that with a grain of salt because he's kind of like, dude, trust me, right? Like that's my source here. But from what I've heard personally everything she sort of said kind of matches up as well up to this point. But what I recently heard is that they are already kind of working on like the marketing for this Donkey Kong game. A title isn't set in stone yet. Now, that's what I heard. Maybe that's not entirely true, right? But it does seem like this
might
game
not be
is
known yet to some of the
right.
markets. Yeah.
Right. But it does seem like they are close to kind of showing it off. It feels like the impression is that this game isn't far off. This isn't like a Bayonetta situation or a Prime Force situation where they're just going to say Donkey Kong coming to Switch. Like when we see this, we're probably going to get gameplay, is the impression at least, right? And I'm not saying there's like a whole bunch of footage out there or anything like that, but basically they've seen material, and the material seems something like what Retro would do. That's what I've sort of heard. That I'm not saying it looks like Tropical Freeze necessarily, but it does seem kind of like a natural evolution of that. Maybe take with that what you will. But to me, it's just kind of additional information supporting the idea that this is all legitimate. I definitely think it's happening. I think E3 is a good bet for it being announced. That's not necessarily going to happen. I just want to point that out. So if E3 comes around and we don't actually get confirmation, don't assume that it's fake, because sometimes things take a couple years. Look at Skyward Sword HD, for example. But I think this is very much real.
Yeah, and to add to that, Samus Hunter told me and Nintendo Life inferred that this is a 2021 game. This is a game coming later this year.
Mhm.
So even if the title isn't final at E3, doesn't mean that it's not going to come this year. I do think the title is probably final inside EPD. Nintendo EPD. They just might not have shared it out to anyone, or they're just waiting. I think it's one of those things where they know these rumors exist. Nintendo's not stupid, so they just don't want the title to get out, so they're not sharing it with people. Like they might not even be sharing it with the marketing teams. Like they might not even see like what the final trailer is going to be that's shown. That might have the title at the end. So I don't know. That's one of those things we'll see come E3. The consensus seems to be we're going to see this at E3. This is a game that's a lot closer, ready to go than people might think. But again, if it's been made by the Odyssey team this whole time, they've had years to put into this. Another thing Nintendo Life pointed out is that they wanted to specifically mention this is not a Donkey Kong Country game. It's not going to be called a Donkey Kong Country game. It's not going to be in the Country line of games. They want to differentiate it from the Country series, which is interesting when Andre brings up, it kind of looks like a Country game. But maybe that's just what meets the eye in a marketing material on a screenshot.
Right.
The
I'm not saying
gameplay
that's
might be
reference to footage.
nothing like it.
Yeah.
Right.
So
but it's weird though, because supposedly it's the Odyssey team. The Mario Odyssey team makes 3D Mario games. Mario Odyssey, 3D World, the Galaxy games. What's interesting though is that team, before they moved on to 3D Mario, they made Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, which was a side scroller, but it had more of like a physical sort of oomph to them, because the boss fights were other Kongs that Donkey Kong would fight and brawl out with them. It was a really cool thing, and you could use the bongos back in the GameCube as a peripheral. So maybe they're going to go back in that direction if they want to differentiate here, if this is actually 2D. I'm personally still a little skeptical of that. I mean, obviously, I think we probably should maybe assume 2D just so we're not disappointed, especially if Nintendo Life is saying that they've heard that. They're pretty trustworthy. But it's just kind of weird because this is the Mario Odyssey team. They've made mostly 3D stuff. They experiment with 2D things within their games. Like they do a lot of like quasi.
I also wonder if you guys remember back to Mario Odyssey, they had 2D elements in that game.
Right.
That maybe that this game does both.
Right.
And
that's
all the marketing team is
sense to me.
seeing right now are like screenshots of the 2D parts, but there maybe that's a whole, mechanic in the game.
Right.
And it is a 3D. That's why everyone is saying, even Nintendo Life, when they said, "Hey, our source said this," but it doesn't mean it can't be a 3D Donkey Kong. It's just kind of,
and it doesn't mean
the
that
material
they're lying
out there doesn't
if it
seem
does turn out to be.
definitive on what it is at this moment. Well, it will be definitive when we see the trailer. But it sounds like, from what I have heard, all these marketing people that have access don't have footage. What they have is marketing material being worked on, and only so much information. Like you said, no titles, right? They don't have access to the damn title. Let alone are they going to know for sure if it's 2D or 3D or both. They have access to some screenshots that they're going to use in their marketing materials. But it's one of those situations that we'll have to wait and see. I want to give a little bit of shout out to Taker610 in the chat, who's watching this podcast live. Because he did do a little $2 super chat quick.
Nice.
And he says the hypersensitive world can't take Funky Kong.
Funky Kong.
So I want to throw this to Eric. So Andre and I did a lot of talk about like what this game could be. It definitely sounds like it's a real thing that's happening. Expect to at least see it at E3.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, what are your thoughts? I know you like Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
So
I don't
what are
play
your
much for
thoughts?
games, but I do like Donkey Kong the character
Yeah,
himself.
I know you love DK the
So,
character.
what I'm hoping for is actually they do kind of the Mario Odyssey type of thing to it, where it's kind of open world. You can go to different. Maybe you visit other past games and play the levels, some of the levels from it, and they just update it and add a new few elements to it. You have your blend of your 2D, 3D. That'd be really kind of cool to see. Revolutionize the series a little bit again, because that seems to be what they're doing with their major titles. Is with the Switch is revolutionizing it, and kind of going in that direction. Open world. That'd be kind of cool.
I want to throw an idea at you guys,
Sure.
especially Eric, because you have that love of the previous Donkey Kong. So you look at what the Odyssey team did, right, with Mario Odyssey. They say it's a spiritual successor to Mario 64, but when you look at the gameplay style, it's very more along the lines in that the collectathon. Maybe the gameplay is perhaps more similar to Banjo-Kazooie than it is to Mario 64, which I think is kind of interesting. But if you go back to the N64 era, when we got that one 3D platforming Donkey Kong game, Donkey Kong 64 was it was made by Rare. Rare also made the Banjo-Kazooie games.
Mm-hmm.
They're very similar in terms of gameplay.
Yeah.
So when you consider that the Odyssey team has this Odyssey engine, a 3D platforming game that's perhaps more similar to Banjo-Kazooie than it was to Mario 64 in some ways, and they're going back to Donkey Kong, well, the expectation probably should be 2D because, disappointment and all, and we have a legit source suggesting so.
Right.
I feel like they could very much so make kind of like a proper 3D Donkey Kong, like do it right. I love Donkey Kong 64 as a kid, but I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
right? There were issues, but I think those issues could be rectified with a proper game nowadays made by the Odyssey team using an adapted form of that engine. Like, I think there's a lot of potential there. When I talk about this, like, what do you guys make of that? Does that sound exciting? Does that sound plausible to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds exciting for sure, because, 64 was my era, for sure. I played a lot of that, and so, those games, it's Banjo-Kazooie was my thing, for sure. And so any games kind of similar to that, I'm all for.
Yeah, like Ukulele.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Ukulele was a little bit, the controls were a little bit loose for me, but
it's funny with the controls of that game too, because I went back after and I played the original Banjo and it was just as loose, and it makes me feel like I think we're just used to more modern games.
Yeah.
And they're tighter today than they were back then.
Yeah.
But
well, and I think it's probably more because I'm
nostalgia.
No, not just that, but I put in so many more hours into Banjo-Kazooie that I, knew how to control the characters.
Sure,
and
they're a little bit different in this game.
Yeah, so it's I think it's more of that too, where I knew how to control the characters. I could make them do what I wanted. Where Ukulele, when you're doing that little spinny ball thing,
yep,
that is one of the harder things to control, at least for me. And I didn't really put a whole lot of time into it, which.
Sure.
Is unfortunate because it's not a bad game by any means.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Donkey Kong. I like what you were laying out there, Andre. I like that the possibility of just what this could be looking back at some of the older games like the DK64 era. Because I feel like a lot of people do. DK64 was a very good proof of concept, poorly executed. Whereas they've learned a lot since those days. One of the weird things with Nintendo, and this is one reason why I think some people might be disappointed if it's just a side-scrolling DK game, which, by the way, a side-scrolling DK game made by the Mario Odyssey team is going to be excellent.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be a great game.
I think what lets people down about that is, one, obviously the hype of this is the Odyssey team.
Mm-hmm.
And two, Nintendo seems to not want to have another 3D platforming game. How many 2D side-scrolling platforming games does Nintendo have? A ton of them. Kirby,
They're
Donkey
easier
Kong,
to put out.
Metroid,
Yoshi.
Like all these games, they are easier to put out. But they got no problem spitting out 3D Mario. Why does Mario have to be the only game that we get 3D entries in? And the 3D Mario games sell okay. Odyssey sold phenomenal, 20 million. So like, I feel like Nintendo needs to be willing to take more risks and try to get more. Like, it's kind of like why do they only have one action adventure game with Zelda? Why can't we have more? Why is there only one Metroidvania game? Why is there only one 3D platforming game? Why can't we have more of them? And Nintendo used to experiment in that way. And they kind of don't. They kind of play it safe. I'm not saying they play it safe with new IPs. Obviously, Splatoon 2, they didn't play it safe there. They didn't play it safe with ARMS. They didn't play it safe with that one on DS, the cyberpunk style America Abraham Lincoln thing, whatever it was.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on this though. Yeah,
Sure.
just my perspective is just that because you look at the Wii U situation, right? That was a complete failure. So I think once they realized the Wii U was not going to be a great success, and you can kind of tell that they weren't putting all of their developmental efforts into Wii U games. Like Star Fox Zero, I think, is a great example of that. They could have done so much more, but they didn't, right? I think they really just kind of put all of their eggs into a strong Switch launch, which is why 2017 is almost indisputably the best year ever from Nintendo, right? Like March to December was just a stellar amount of killer content from Nintendo. And then if you look at all the other years, there's solid content, but nothing really compares to 2017.
Second half of 2019 is pretty close.
It is close.
I'll
give you that. But I'll say that Luigi's Mansion 3, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, some of my favorite games on Switch, but they're still not better than Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, or Xenoblade 2. Not to me personally, at least, right?
Well, sure, but that wasn't it. They also had Pokemon Sword and Shield come out that year. They had Astral Chain come out, Daemon X Machina.
Right. It was a strong,
whatever.
Strong, very, very strong, and we
that
can
was
compare
all the second half, by the way, guys. That's crazy.
That is a crazy second half.
Which is why I'm optimistic for the second half of 2021. It could be a similar situation there, where it's kind of like every 2 to 3 weeks we get some sort of Nintendo published title, right? Kind of like then.
Well, starting they had the Skyward Sword forward, I hope it's just
right. I mean, they kind of did to support new hardware. They had the Switch Lite during that period. In September, if I remember correctly, Switch Lite and Link's Awakening came out at the same time. And Dragon Quest XI's, which Nintendo published, and that was kind of like built basically from the ground up to be a proper, better version on Switch, that came out in the same month. And there were games before that and afterwards. It was a crazy time, to your point. But I guess what I was trying to get at earlier is just that Nintendo seems to have invested in a lot of things that they knew would do really well in the beginning of the Switch. So we kind of seen most of that. Like they knew Zelda would do well. They knew Mario would do well. Maybe not as well as they did, but they wanted to make sure Switch was a success considering the failure of the Wii U. They could not afford to fail again. You know what I mean? But maybe now the Switch has finally had that success. Perhaps now Nintendo might be a little bit more willing to experiment a little bit. Now they've gone out all of their main entries, which is why, maybe we'll see Metroid Prime 4 not too long from now. Maybe we'll see this Donkey Kong game, and maybe it is more of an experiment as opposed to just another safe 2D side scroller.
Yep. Yeah. Again, we'll see. We don't know. None of us have seen the game, so we don't know. We're just hearing people behind the scenes talking about it, people public facing talking about it. All we know is it definitely seems like DK locked in for E3 2021, and then we'll see what it is. We'll see what it is. I know. Here's the thing, Andre. Are you gonna be disappointed if it's just a side-scrolling DK game?
Not really. I think there's a lot of potential with the 3D Donkey Kong game because maybe that's what it would take to make Donkey Kong become like a big series, like supposedly they want to reinvent it and have it be like back to the good old days. But a 2D Donkey Kong game, I mean, Tropical Freeze is one of the best platformers of all time. So if they could do something similar, I would be super excited for that.
Yeah, it's funny when Samus Hunter said like they want Donkey Kong to be as big as it was like back in the old days. It's like, but the least successful game they released was Donkey Kong 64. So it's kind of like the good old days were Country on the SNES. That's like when it sold the best. So I don't know. Well, I'm very interested to see. I do like that even if it is 2D side scrolling, that Nintendo Life came out and said, but they don't want it to be compared to a Country game, which a 2D side scrolling DK game would instantly be compared to the Country games. So we'll see what happens. I'm very curious to see. This is a very creative team. They've done a lot of creative things with Mario over the years, and obviously with DK back in the day. So let's see what they do here. And E3 2021 cannot come soon enough. So before we hop into our E3 speculation, because obviously E3 is going to kind of be like a central theme to every podcast from now to E3, right? Like I can tell you guys, either I'm pretty sure next week we're going to have Jeff Grubb coming on from VentureBeat, and he's going to be talking about all of his stuff that he's been hearing for E3, not just with Nintendo, with everyone. So that's going to be a really fun one as well. We have more confirmation of rumors. More reports have come out now that Monolith Soft has a couple games, like big games in the works. One, new Xenoblade. No surprise. Xenoblade has been growing in popularity on Switch. Xenoblade 2 was the best-selling one. I think Xenoblade Definitive Edition just passed it. So, like, Xenoblade is the most popular it's ever been. Nintendo's going to let it grow. And it's funny because this is kind of an interesting thing. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, best-selling one ever, 1.5 million. If that would have happened with any other game at any other AAA studio, they would have did exactly what Activision did with Crash 4 and said, sorry, not good enough, you're going to go make Call of Duty. Nintendo's like, nah, 1.5? Hey, that increased over the last one. Let's make another one.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's nice about Nintendo. They don't have to have every game be a 10, 20 million seller for them to want sequels. They just want to see positive momentum in the series. They were seeing negative momentum with Fire Emblem back in the day, which is why they said if Awakening didn't sell well, that was it. Because the momentum was going the opposite way. Now the momentum's going up for Fire Emblem.
Yeah, throw in some waifus, and all of a sudden everything.
Suddenly everything's all better.
Yeah.
Everything's better.
Why not?
Yeah.
So that is one thing. New Xenoblade game. I don't know anyone shocked by that. Apparently, it's pretty far along. That was the one thing that we heard today that I thought was interesting is that Xenoblade Chronicles, the new one, I don't know if they're calling it 3, I don't know what they're calling it, is pretty far along. Potential to be shown off at E3 2021 is what I heard, but that's just potential. I think it's going to come down to, is it coming out this year or next year? If it's going to be later next year, they might hold off and reveal it in a future Nintendo Direct or something.
I want to point out a couple observations I've made in the past.
Sure.
In reference to this, because it kind of lines up with what Samus Hunter was saying, by the way, which kind of goes back to what I was saying, is that a lot of the things she's saying are kind of like predictions myself and others have sort of made that seem kind of like to make a lot of sense. So on the note of Xenoblade, right? We know that they've been working on multiple projects for a few years already. They had hires in 2017. They had hires in 2019. They've been continually building up their teams. They're working on multiple projects right now. But what's interesting is that we get Pyra Mythra this year. And you look at that Smash reveal trailer. That Smash reveal trailer was different than any other Smash reveal trailer we've ever seen. They even said that Monolith Soft made that reveal trailer and Sakurai simply oversaw it. They've never done that before. This is a unique situation. And when we first saw that trailer at the beginning of the February Direct, people were under the impression, myself included, is that like at first I thought, okay, this is Smash, obviously. But then as it drew on, I was like, wait, there's a lot of story stuff here. They're really exploring the whole world of Xenoblade 2. Is this some sort of expansion of Xenoblade 2? And then, no, it was still Smash again, but it was a bit of a roller coaster there because of the way it was presented. And the reveal for Pyra Mythra actually boosted Xenoblade 2 sales. It kind of makes me wonder if maybe this is a part of some sort of grander marketing plan to, come out with a Xenoblade 3 later this year. We've seen Nintendo do this before, for example, like with Luigi's Mansion. They had the Castlevania characters revealed for Smash Brothers, and Luigi had a big role in that. And then a few months later, what happened? They revealed Luigi's Mansion 3. So it wouldn't surprise me if this was meant to maybe be some sort of build up towards a Xenoblade 3 of some sort.
Yeah, I mean that's what it seems like right now. I don't know. I mean, Xenoblade is growing in popularity. Been talked about for a while. Andre's been speculating on this stuff for a while. I don't know if you guys have checked out his channel. If you don't, please go subscribe. I would love to get Andres Restart to 10,000 subs before E3. That would be amazing. I think he's at 9,300 something.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah,
we've got to get about 650 to get there.
Yeah, so let's get him to 10K.
Doable.
Have him hit a nice milestone here before.
Yeah,
I'd appreciate it, guys.
Before E3, he puts out, guys. He's a very underrated YouTuber. I'm letting you guys know right now. He's got even the video he put out today. I saw it was kind of like underperforming compared to some. Why? It is so good. I watched the whole thing on my lunch break. Guys, go watch his stuff. It's awesome.
Thank you, my friend.
So, as he talked about stuff, he was already speculating that's now getting rumors and confirmations. Here's the thing. They're also working on a new IP. Now, we factually have known this for quite some time. They were hiring for a new IP for years, okay? This goes back before Nintendo Prime was even a YouTube channel, before Xenoblade Chronicles 2 came out. It's been something that's been known for a long time. Was speculated way back in the day when I ran ZeldaInformer.com that it was for a Zelda game, because Monolith Soft has helped out with Zelda games. So it was like, oh, it must be for a Zelda game. It sounds like as they keep hiring, it has nothing to do with Zelda. And Monolith Soft did have like hire 40 people recently. Some of them literally listing Zelda as part of the hiring. So like, yeah, those 5 people they hired, that's for the Zelda. The rest, nobody knows. So I think they obviously have a new IP coming. And the funny thing about that is we just talked about how Xenoblade Chronicles, whatever it is, 3x2, whatever it's going to be, is so much further along and possibly ready to go either this year or next year. Apparently, so is the new IP. And that was something that came out today, that potentially the new IP. And what came out the other day is one of the lead music directors for the Xenoblade series posted a thing saying that he's about to do, or just finished up, it was one of the two, symphony recording session for a game he's working on for Monolith. Is it for the new IP? Is it for Xenoblade? When you get to the point you're adding music to the game, that's usually the latter half of development, is when music comes into play. So it's kind of like one of these two games I feel like are going to end up being at E3. One of them, maybe both.
Mhm.
I have no idea,
That'd
but it
be
kind of
crazy.
feels like,
That would be nuts.
yeah.
I mean, Monolith Soft kind of like is like the glue that holds Nintendo together, it seems, because they're working on so many different games at Nintendo. They've helped out with, like, for example, they help out with the Zelda games, and they have several different studios. They're making their own games. It's just crazy how much Monolith Soft does for Nintendo. They are wholly owned by Nintendo. I see people make that mistake a lot. Monolith Soft, Xenoblade, it's all 100% Nintendo.
Yeah.
But they carry so much weight for Nintendo.
Wasn't
They're
always the case,
one of
by
my
the way.
favorite studios.
Right.
I think
No.
they used to work for Square, right?
Yeah.
I think that's where the studio started, was with Square, because people hear Xenoblade. Yeah, there was a Xeno series before Xenoblade.
So you guys
this
remember the
team
name
worked on it.
Squaresoft?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, where do you think Monolith Soft comes from, right?
Yeah.
Like
And then-
there was a huge transition over the 90s to the early 21st century. I think when we were getting the Batten Kaidos games on GameCube, Monolith Soft already sort of separated themselves, but they weren't entirely owned by Nintendo yet.
No, and then
Mhm.
I can't remember. I've read the story once before, but basically Nintendo eventually just acquired the whole company, and they've been doing a great job for Nintendo ever since. Kind of like when they grabbed Retro Studios, right? Ended up turning into a great partnership. They bought out the studio. Now it's a wholly owned Nintendo place. People still consider it, like a second party developer, because it's not in Japan where Nintendo's headquarters are. But anything they do, Nintendo owns. Just like they now bought out that studio that made Luigi's Mansion. So now they own that studio, which was only making Nintendo games anyways for like the last decade. So
Yeah. Might as well.
I don't really think much really changes there. More funding. So besides that, so that's Xenoblade rumors. All right, that's new IP rumors. Remember, Shintaro Furukawa said they're focusing on new IPs, so this is probably one of them. One thing I want to briefly mention before we get to E3 speculation. The trademark was recently re-upped for Baten Kaitos, and that had people talking.
Oh man.
I love Baten Kaitos, guys. Not the sequel. I'm not a huge fan of the sequel, but the original, huge fan of that. So I don't know if it's coming back. Re-upping trademarks doesn't always really mean anything, but the trademark was kind of left dormant for years, and they brought it back. Why? Are they remastering?
At the very
it?
least, it's something so they can make sure that maybe someday they can revisit it, right? They don't want to lose it.
I mean, my hope is,
Yeah.
Are we getting GameCube Virtual Console? Yes.
Right? Right?
But it's not happening. I'll tell you right now, GameCube, even if that rumored service comes true, GameCube ain't gonna be on that thing for a long time. I hate saying that, but anyways, let's get into some E3 2021 speculations. Call it expectations. Call it whatever you guys want. Obviously, we'll be focusing on Nintendo as usual. Although we could talk about some other companies. There's some things we hope come from them, because Nintendo has a lot of partner companies at E3, of course. Bandai Namco, Square Enix, Sega. All those companies could have games announced that end up coming to Ubisoft.
Mhm.
Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle 2. Although interesting thing about Ubisoft, we'll get into that later because we need to talk about the future of the game industry, but we're gonna get to that towards the end because it's something Ubisoft publicly announced that sucks.
Oh yeah.
It kind of sucks in a way. And the funny thing is, if you pay attention, the rest of the industry seems to already be doing it. But before we talk about that, let's talk about the fun stuff with E3 2021 speculation, expectations, etc. Eric, can you at least give me 2 games you absolutely want to see at E3 that's not Zelda?
Oh.
Absolutely, 100%, your choice. Pick of the lot. Any game that you ever could possibly want to exist. Announce at this E3.
Conker's Bad Fur Day 2.
There we go. Hey, what's wrong with that? It's going to be on Xbox, but who cares?
Yeah.
I think everyone would be happy about that.
Yeah.
Just like a
I'd
new
be excited
Banjo.
for that.
Yeah.
I've taken that one away
Well,
from you right now because I know
what?
that's your second one.
The second one was another Banjo game.
Yep.
Fine.
Took away your second
another
copy.
Time Splitters game.
Oh, that's a good one.
I remember us playing back in the
Oh,
day quite a
Time
bit.
Splitters coming back. There has been some speculation out there about Time Splitters coming back. Some IP renewals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember Time Splitters because some of you guys might be too young to when that series was relevant, but that was a really fun game back in the day. Played a hell of a lot of it. I think it was Time Splitters 2. Played a lot of that on GameCube. The multiplayer was so crazy fun. Oh my god.
Yes,
it was like
I remember.
GoldenEye on crack. It was great. Okay. We'll leave that. Is there anything else that you have any hopes or expectations for E3, Eric? Before we move on to Andre. I know Andre's got a lot
Honestly,
of stuff.
it would be nice to see the.
This is what we do.
Yeah, right.
This is what we do.
It'd be nice to obviously see the Donkey Kong game, some of the new stuff that is rumored to be out there, and more than likely will. It's always going to be nice to see those. I just like seeing new games, so it'll be interesting to see what the indies get wrapped up in Nintendo's conferences.
Hollow Knight Silk Song. I'm rooting for you. Come on.
So
If we all put our hopes together, maybe it'll become a reality.
right.
Oh man.
So
Anything else?
No. It's just like I said. It's just be interesting to see some of the newer indie games that kind of are highlighted by Nintendo, things like that. And
So I got to ask you, Eric.
Yeah.
Before we move on to Andre, because me and Andre obviously have quite a
Oh,
bit
yeah.
to say on this because this is what we do.
Yeah.
Let's presume Nintendo does Zelda 35th anniversary dump at
Mhm.
E3. I don't know
Okay.
if they're going to, but let's presume they do.
Yeah.
Assume Breath of the Wild 2. Okay,
Okay.
whatever.
Yep.
What other Zelda games that you want to come back that you might actually consider trying out? Because I know you didn't really play Zelda games growing up. You watch me,
Oh yeah.
but you didn't play them yourself.
Right.
Like you just completed Breath of the Wild.
Yep.
For those who don't know, we talked about this last podcast. He
Yep.
completed Breath of the Wild. finally.
Congratulations.
Oh yeah.
Which is a big deal for him. He doesn't
Yeah.
have that kind of time, and he doesn't have the kind of dedication typically to beat really long games. And he beat Breath of the Wild. And he didn't do it like, oh, I just completed the 4.
No, I have all the shrines.
He did
beaten.
all the shrines, all of them, and the DLC.
Yep.
So all of them got the Master Cycle and everything. So
The only thing I haven't completed yet is the third trial of the Master Sword. I'm
okay.
almost there.
That's okay.
I'm almost there. I got to the second to last level.
It's
in
very
it and
hard.
died.
It is
very
pretty
hard.
difficult. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you get to a point where you're like so exhausted on resources and such, and then you just see this giant army, and you're like, "Oh,
I'm done.
all right."
It was a good life.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Right.
Moving on.
Yeah. Right.
So what games do you hope they announce that you might consider trying if they did? for Zelda?
I mean, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess would be kind of your 3 majors. I don't know if they would redo Wind Waker, considering that they've already they have already HD'd quite a few of the other ones
They
that I just
HD
mentioned.
Twilight Princess.
So
They have not HD'd Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask. They did
so
remake them on the 3DS, however.
yeah.
Skyward Sword was the only one they didn't do anything to.
Right.
3D-wise.
Okay. Yeah, no, those 3 I think would be good because I like I said, like you said, I've watched them all growing up, watching you play them. I've watched Game Grumps play them. So it's one of those things that I've kind of gotten a little bit more into Zelda. Not that I haven't been into Zelda, but Breath of the Wild kind of pulled me a little bit deeper, and it would be kind of fun to go back and play any one of those, old 3D Zelda games. So whatever they bring, I'll take with open arms.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. Any other games from any other company that you could think of?
Man, no.
I mean, we briefly talked about Kingdom Battle 2.
I mean,
that'd
that would
nice.
be
That'd be
freaking
nice.
amazing, or like a spin-off of it, and maybe not necessarily Mario.
Yeah,
maybe a different
Donkey
character.
Kong Kingdom Battle.
Right. I mean, they already brought Donkey
Zelda
Kong into
Kingdom Battle. Let's go.
That would be awesome. That would be a little weird.
Well, so was the whole concept of Mario plus Rabbids in the first place. Let's be honest. They let Mario have a gun.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah,
and not like one like in DK where it shoots peanuts. An actual gun.
You're not
shooting
wrong.
laser beams.
Yes, you're not wrong.
so
yeah, no, that'd be kind of cool. So, one of the Rabbids games. You know, I love the Rabbids.
Oh.
So
Rabbids are hilarious.
Any one of those, whether it's a direct sequel to Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle or a spin-off where it's a different franchise coming in. I know we've always talked about the Zelda Dungeon Maker type of thing, and kind of along the veins of Mario Maker. That would be kind of cool to see. I know they did kind of that test in Link's Awakening, so maybe that's going to lead off into an actual full-blown game. Not saying necessarily going to happen this year, but it'd be kind of cool to kind of have them hint at it during the E3 Zelda blowout. So that may or may not happen during E3. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. You know, whether we'll get it or not, you know, it is what it is.
All right. Before we get to Andre, quick, good to respond quick to Taker 610. Thank you so much for the another $2 super chat. He was given that live during the podcast here, and he says, "Oompa Loompa Doopity Doo, what is with Andre's hue?" A lot of that's the TV, because we had to turn down the brightness on the TV. Otherwise, it kind of blows out and makes Eric and I look too dark. So then Andre gets to look a little darker than he normally would look. Even if he brightened the lights in his room, it's not really going to make a difference on our end. That's just kind of the way it is. It'll be better during E3 when we have guests on, because we have a different camera angle that lets us crank the brightness on the TV. But that's just the way it is on the podcast, just so people know. For the audio listeners listening, on the video version, we have a TV between Eric and I that has our guest on, and so that's what he's talking about there, on why he might look a little bit orange in comparison to Eric and I. It's just, it is what it is. It's also one of the downfalls of doing the podcast live. When we weren't doing it live, I could do color correction after. Can't do that on a live podcast. So that is what it is. All right,
the good
Andre.
news, though, is that I get to look a little bit more like Charmander. So
there you go.
I mean, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
You got to find the positives.
Yeah. Well, the bandana's not on your head, so you don't quite match your.
Yeah, he's resting right now.
He's taking a little break.
Yeah.
All right, Andre. Expectations for E3. Go.
Okay, so
this is
expectations,
I'm
not
gonna
wishes,
sit back
right?
and take a nap.
Right.
Okay, so disclaimer, right? You take it all with a grain of salt, right? And you know, there's just kind of like a lot of things that I think have a good possibility, but when you kind of break it out all down, it's not really likely that all of it will show up. But maybe within the next couple of years, most of this will have come to fruition, right? So, firstly, I'll speak on the Mario Rabbids thing, right? Because I talked about it in my video today. Actually, I believe that there is a sequel to Mario Rabbids coming. Why do I think that? Well, one, because the game was very successful. They even had the Donkey Kong expansion. Two, the game sold pretty well. Three, there were interviews suggesting that they would like to continue working on that. And if you go back to when they first announced it, like I believe some of the developers were actually crying on stage. Like this was like a big emotional moment for them. This is a big bonding moment between Nintendo and Ubisoft as well. So like the relations there with that project were very strong. And this game came out back in 2017. Yeah, the DLC came out back in 2018, but we're now in 2021. So if they decide to continue on with that project in any way, we probably would start to see signs of that this year. And we actually have, because the Rabbids Twitter page has recently changed to have a Mario Rabbids as the profile page, which is interesting because back before Mario Rabbids itself was revealed, there were hints and teases leading up to it as well. And I'll just tell you that I personally have heard that there is some sort of Mario RPG coming from Ubisoft this year. So connect the dots. You know, it kind of all adds up.
Yes!
Take it with a grain of salt. It's a rumor, right? We don't know for sure.
For sure.
Thank you for giving me a video for tomorrow.
It is something that I am looking forward to seeing. Like it's on my radar,
That excites
right?
me.
So we'll see. But that's one of my pseudo expectations, right? Because there's so many possibilities. Another one is a project from Monolith Soft. I don't think we'll see both at E3, even though theoretically it could happen, right? Again, we know they've been working on a new IP of some sort since 2017. One idea I'll throw out at you guys, I'm not saying it's super likely, but I'm just throwing it out as a possibility. A new IP could technically also be a Zelda spinoff. And if you look at the concept art from the hires they've done, there's like this warrior-looking Zelda with like some sort of red dragon, looks like Valu in the background, and there's this other one that actually has Triforce-looking things and ruins.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's actually a Zelda spinoff, but
Right.
it could be medieval inspired. It may be Zelda inspired.
Is it finally that action adventure game I want them to have alongside Zelda?
Yeah.
That's what I want. A new IP that's action adventure. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
That's one of my hopes and dreams. I've been waiting like 30 years for it and it still hasn't happened. So
someday. Look, when you look at the concept art for that, like some of it looks kind of like Dark Soulsy almost, right? But there's also another possibility I'll throw out at you guys. Like, what if Monolith Soft is working on some sort of MMO-like game? And I know that may sound a little crazy, right? Especially coming from Nintendo, but consider that they updated their online servers this year. Monster Hunter Rise is like the best playing online game yet. And they randomly decided to add online to Super Mario Party. The game came out years ago. Why? It's just kind of very strange, but it makes me maybe think that they're testing things out. Maybe they're going to have some online-centric games coming out soon. Maybe one of them is coming from Monolith Soft. If you look at Xenoblade X, that had some MMO-like qualities, but of course on the Wii was very limited. So maybe they got something brewing there. Either way, something Monolith Soft I expect, whether it's Xenoblade 3 or a new IP. One of those things, I think there's a good chance we see that at E3. Another game is Bayonetta 3. That game's been in development since 2017. I think there's a decent chance that they finally show it off. Hideki Kamiya has alluded to us likely getting news this year. So given that it was announced 3.5 years ago, maybe we finally get some news. It doesn't even have to come out this year. Just news would be nice. But I'll also say that I feel like Nintendo's going to want a few like high graphical fidelity games to come out to support a Switch Pro. So if that is coming out this holiday, I think a Bayonetta 3 or a Monolith Soft game would be a good like 1B title to support that. The 1A, bringing to my next sort of like expectation, is Breath of the Wild 2. So I still think that there's a good chance it comes out for the holiday. Could be wrong, of course. There's COVID and all of these different things. And then if the Switch Pro is delayed because of the semiconductor issue, like there's all of these what ifs, right? But when Nintendo comes out and says that they're expecting to come out with at least 25.5 million units for the fiscal year, that bodes really well for what they think they can put out this year. To me, that suggests that they're going to put out good hardware, they're going to put out good promotions, they're going to put out good software. So I feel somewhat confident predicting Breath of the Wild 2 for the holiday, which means, an E3 blowout. And even if it doesn't come out for the holiday, I think we're seeing Breath of the Wild 2 at E3. Like, that seems like pretty much a given. I think when AJ Numas told us that we're getting details at a later date, somewhere between June 12th and 15th is that date. So that's going to be there.
Right.
To some extent, at least. Going beyond that, I think we'll finally get something announced Metroid. I would love to see Prime 4, but I'm gonna assume that best case I'm gonna assume that we just get like hey, we know you're excited about Metroid Prime 4. Development's going well. We'll share details at a later date, just like for Zelda. But we have something else to show you. And they showed like a 2D Metroid game, which looks amazing, and it's made by Mercury Steam. Which, by the way, Nate, I don't know if you saw this, right? But apparently Mercury Steam, 505 Games is publishing their next Mercury Steam game.
Yep.
So some people sort of took this to mean that Mercury Steam is not working on Metroid, or they haven't. But consider this. Back in 2017, the last time they came out with games, they came out with 2. One of them was Metroid, and then there was something else. It's entirely possible we could be looking at a similar situation here. So just because 505 Games is publishing something doesn't mean they weren't working on Metroid. Of course, again, it is a rumor that it's Mercury Steam. It could be someone else. Maybe it's Metroid's not even coming, but I feel pretty confident saying that Metroid is showing up at this E3. And I'll throw another thing at you. So maybe not all of you love Fortnite, but we did get that document leak, or from maybe it's not, is it even defined as a leak, but whatever it is, information has...
Yeah. They literally published it during a lawsuit. So
right, so it's not a leak, but information surfaced, right, came to light, And it was a document we saw that had a whole bunch of things that were planned for Fortnite, including like Naruto and LeBron James and Batman, Batman Kane,
Okay.
What is it
Kratos,
planned?
and Master Chief were a part of that.
Okay.
Those were added. But one thing that wasn't added that was in those documents was Samus. Now, it makes sense to not have announced Samus for Fortnite yet because Nintendo hasn't announced a Metroid game yet. Maybe the plans fell through. Maybe they never even got as far as talking about Nintendo. Maybe it was just more of a hope. But if it is going to happen, I feel like it would happen once there's an actual Metroid game shown off to us. So maybe at E3, we get some sort of Fortnite update for Samus and Fortnite because we're also getting a Metroid game later this year. So I think that's a possibility.
You got to be
Yeah.
phenomenal at connect the dots. My lord.
I mean, connect the
It's
dots
what I
is
do.
pretty basic
Well,
compared
I know,
to what
but
Andre
this
does.
is advanced connect the dots. This is
Well, this is Eric. You don't watch my channel enough. Andre and I get on the same wavelength on a lot of this stuff. Super quick on connecting. Like connecting the dots is half of the fun of making YouTube videos. Because it's cool to talk about. Like I'll say this: I like talking about real news when real news happens. But in the gaming industry, especially talking about Nintendo, we don't get real news all the time, right? And I'm not saying the rest of the content's filler. The rest of the content is let's figure out what the next news is going to be. And that is a lot of fun. So connecting the dots, posting with the rumors and leaks, having our podcast conversation, and we'll talk about other stuff as well. As I said, we have a conversation later about the future of the game industry that I think is a very important one to have, and probably one I'll make a standalone video on, or maybe I'll clip out that part of the podcast and make it its own thing, because I think it's that important of a conversation. Even if I don't know if it's going to do well view wise, I don't care. The future of the game industry matters. Cool.
Absolutely.
So
But
just so
I'll
you
say
know,
that-
the eighth arc, thinks that your Fox shirt is awesome. He's super chatted just to say nice Fox shirt.
nice.
Star Fox is awesome. I don't have anything to say about Star Fox yet, so I'm sorry. But I do think someday. I mean, I would actually
Star
love
Fox
it.
Zero. That's what it'll be. The port Star Fox Zero.
I'll tell you that I would love it if they were to take the Starlink idea and accept instead of it being Starlink, it just being a full blown like Star Fox universe. Because I feel like the thing that held back Starlink was that it was a little bit too repetitious. Common thing amongst the Ubisoft games. Unfortunately, they're very grand in scope, really great ideas, but sometimes they perhaps need a little bit more like depth, I would say. But perhaps if they were to scale things down a little bit and make it solely based off the Star Fox universe, maybe we could actually explore like the actual Lilat system instead of like a random space place. Like that would be amazing. And I would love it if they were to go in that direction. And I don't think it's like entirely impossible because I mean, I'm sure that the Star Fox version of Starlink is what sold the best, right? So maybe there's something there, but I have no information suggesting so. It's just something I would like to see someday, right? But I want to point out, Gamer Over Jesse said that if Metroid is not at E3, he will eat my left shoe. If that happens, I'll make sure to at least clean my shoe. So it's, hygienic at the very least. But, fingers crossed I'll have both my shoes.
That's better than I would have
after
did. I just
E3.
would have went out in my backyard and make sure to step in some of my dog's crap and then mail it to him.
Oh.
Nah.
Oh, no.
But, I mean,
Yeah.
he's not eating my shoe. So
Right.
you don't got to worry about it.
Yeah. That's just another package we'd have to send out.
Yeah, we have sent a lot of packages after E3.
Well, maybe that's another giveaway. Nate's left shoe.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, that'll be a great one.
Yeah.
But I do kind of like how we were talking about how like a lot of this is like connecting the dots. Because like Nate, to your point, like when we get like new information, it's just like more to sort of sift through and figure out, right? Like when we get that E3 Direct, that's like getting a really, really, really big puzzle piece. And once we get that big puzzle piece, all the other circulating pieces will kind of put together. Like imagine like right now what we have is basically like the border of the puzzle. And when we get E3, we're going to get like this big fat chunk that fills out the core. And then we could just piece everything else together afterwards, or a lot of it. So yeah, for me, a lot of this is just like a giant puzzle. So it's really exciting. But I guess kind of like continuing on my expectations here. So what we got? We got Bayonetta 3, 2D Metroid, Breath of the Wild 2, maybe Monolith Soft, Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, Shin Megami Tensei 5. Actually, I think that's like a given because that's slated for 2021.
Supposed to come out this year.
Right. So if it's not at E3, it's because it's getting delayed. So
again.
Fingers crossed it's not getting delayed and we see it at E3. On the note of third party like games that we could see on Switch, I think we probably should get an update on Triangle Strategy as well.
Oh, sure.
That makes sense. Yeah. And assuming plans don't fall through, according to Samus Hunter, there's going to be a Splatoon 3 tournament. So if there's going to be a Splatoon 3 tournament, you got to think we're going to get a Splatoon 3 update at E3 as well, right? So if that's actually the case, I think that's a pretty decent bet. The game's already announced, so that kind of makes sense.
So for Splatoon 3, I think if they do that Nintendo Treehouse tournament, I feel like they might not show a Splatoon 3 trailer during the digital event part. What they'll do is they'll kind of show a trailer right before they start the tournament, or maybe even at the end of the tournament.
Yeah.
To get people to tune into that Splatoon 3 tournament more, to see gameplay, and then end it with a trailer or a story trailer or something. Because for those who don't know, like if you're not big into Splatoon, yeah, it's a multiplayer game and all that, but like it's got a overarching connecting story between all the games, and the users directly affect that story. And it's really cool how they do it, because it's unlike all these other multiplayer shooters already from a gameplay perspective, and also from a story perspective. Like the Splatfests matter. It makes a difference in the way the story goes.
What was the last one? I'm trying to remember. Was it like Future or something?
Something
was it Order versus Chaos?
Yeah.
Yeah, Order versus Chaos.
And Chaos
Which one won? Chaos won. Huh. So I wonder, right? Like you look at Splatoon 3, like it's like this desert world, like would the chaos lead to this entirely? Yeah, I mean,
it did.
Splatoon already takes place in a dystopian society, but what's also interesting is that they did actually tease Splatoon 3, by the way. So in case for some of you who doubt that Nintendo never teases things, back last year, the beginning of the year, there was this piece of art celebrating 2020, but it was an SOS signal where there were Saminids begging for help, crying for help. People thought that was just for fun, but as it turned out, it was 100% a tease for Splatoon 3, because the Saminids are clearly a big part of the story, as we see a Saminid following the Inkling in the trailer. So maybe we learn more about that at E3. That'd be pretty cool.
Again, connecting the dots.
What I could see happening is they have just a small clip in the digital, but say, for more information, tune into our Splatoon 3 tournament, where you'll see another trailer.
Maybe it doesn't get like a big segment, but like at least I feel like it gets at least a mention during a direct. I also think we'll probably. What's up?
How good are you at Connect 4?
Connect 4. It depends on how tired I am.
Connect 4. He's on like Connect 8 right now.
Well, I mean, I didn't want to go too far. Ahead here, because in Connect 4, it's all about anticipating future moves and planning ahead.
So, have you ever played competitive Pokemon?
Oh, have I played competitive Pokemon?
Yes.
I mean, not in the last 20 years, but I did back in the day. Yes.
So, competitive Pokemon is kind of like a variation of chess, as some competitive players would say, because basically, once you understand all the competitive mechanics and you got all the moves and the EV training and the IV breeding, all of that in place, a lot of what it takes to win is kind of thinking ahead, positioning your team and thinking what your opponent's going to do, predicting what they're going to do, and also positioning yourself steps ahead to the point where even if you get the prediction wrong, where you see some bad luck, you can still kind of make up for it. So I used to compete a lot with Pokemon. Yeah, exactly. Pokemon is definitely one of my games. But on that note of Pokemon, I think there's probably going to be a Pokemon Presents before E3.
Oh,
and then they'll just make a reference to it.
They never really do
and the Treehouse footage. Right. Yeah. Samus Hunter's saying we're gonna get Pokemon news, which again, it makes sense. It's how what history has shown. Say for 2020, it's how it's kind of been. So I think don't be surprised if we get like a Pokemon Presents like the first week of June or the last week of May.
Yeah, when that fake leak came out for the Zelda thing happening on June 11th, I'm like, I don't believe that. But if you told me Pokemon was happening June 11th, I would believe that.
It could happen before E3, before.
But they literally, it seems to always happen the week right before E3. There's always, if there's Pokemon games coming, Pokemon does their own thing, and then you'll see Treehouse footage of it, and there'll be a demo on the show floor or something. But they don't really talk about it much during the actual Nintendo Direct portion of the show, because Pokemon already did it. They gave you a whole presentation for it. And again, they have a lot to talk about. I think obviously people are most excited to find out more about Pokemon Legends Arceus, because they really want to know, one, I think people just want to see the game run a little bit better, maybe not look so choppy. That's number
Yeah,
one. And
it
then
was.
number two,
Yeah,
okay, what is the actual premise and like the point of this game? Like it looks so open world. So what are we doing exactly besides just running around and catching Pokemon? Or is that the goal to catch all the Pokemon in the region? That is what the game is.
it's so interesting, right? Because like you could argue the slogan is "Gotta catch them all," right? Like
Mhm.
so, every Pokemon game you could argue is about catching them all, but it really isn't. I've never completed my Pokedex, right? I love Pokemon. I play it a lot. I play
For
the card. I play the video
shame.
game. All of it.
Shame.
Um, I focus more on just the competitive element of things, right? And I enjoy the story, but I don't ever complete the Pokedex. My friends do, and they just help me breed more Pokemon. But um, Legends Arceus is interesting because it might not really have a multiplayer aspect to it. We haven't seen signs of multiplayer yet. Yet at the same time, this is what Game Freak is working on. The main Pokemon team is making this, and they're outsourcing the remakes.
Mhm.
And what's crazy about this is this might throw off the entire cycle of how Pokemon's being handled. Because if you guys aren't unaware, the last like decade or so, or even beyond that, every 3 years we see a new generation of Pokemon. So the pace right now that pace would suggest they're supposed to get Generation 9 holiday 2022. But with Legends Arceus being the first actual full open world Pokemon game being made by Game Freak coming out early 2022, does that mean we get Generation 9 at the end of the year? Or does that mean we have to wait a little bit longer? And that's interesting because if you consider all of the, I guess, the flack that Sword and Shield got, maybe, they are kind of extending things a little bit between the DLC as opposed to a third version and spacing things out a little bit more and outsourcing remakes. Maybe all of a sudden Game Freak has now more time to put together bigger, more ambitious Pokemon games. So, we're getting our first full-on open world Pokemon game, but it might not be like a traditional style. So definitely what we see at E3, I think is going to be very telling for the future of Pokemon.
Yeah, very much. And we've talked about this in a prior episode a while back that it's very much their Game Freak's attempt to Breath of the Wild, the Pokemon series, drawing direct correlations to the Breath of the Wild trailer, very intentionally.
Right.
So
We even
so-
have it sounds like the Impa-like narrator at the beginning.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so that seems to be the goal. I don't know if anyone believes Game Freak can actually pull it off, but maybe they've never had the time or the freedom or the backing to do it. So maybe this is it. And maybe when people think about next gen Pokemon or what the next generation is going to be, maybe this is what they're thinking it possibly might look like if they can pull this off and it be a huge success.
Yeah, it has huge potential. Like I've been thinking, and we've talked about it before, Nate, but like I feel like it's being potentially positioned as like the fiscal year ending game because early 2022 to me screams March 2022, especially considering that when you look at the history of announcements from Pokemon Company, they rarely make an announcement and have the game come out beyond a year. Yep. If we assume it comes out March, that's already more than a year. It's 13 months. So, I have a hard time believing it comes out beyond that. Even new Pokemon Snap was announced last summer.
They said it's an early 2022 game. So to me, that is literally, that's their Animal Crossing New Horizons next year. They're hoping that this game blows up, hits at least 20 million in the first year, and they want it to be a big boost to sales at the end of the fiscal year. And then, if you guys notice, Nintendo kind of has this habit, carry momentum into the next year, because everyone's always worried about when is Switch going to drop off? When are the games going to drop off? When are the sales going to drop off? And Nintendo didn't really have that big game at the beginning of this year. They had a combination of Rise and 3D World, but none of that was as big as Animal Crossing last year. The difference is Nintendo didn't need it this year because the pandemic has ensured their system's going to keep selling. But that's not going to be the case next year. So while they might have a super strong second half of this year, big holidays, what's going to guarantee that they start off the next fiscal year as successful as the last two? A giant, ambitious open world Pokemon game, and if it's done right, that is, Pokemon's already a big seller,
broken,
right?
Right.
It's already a massive seller. So imagine they actually Breath of the Wild and pull it off like the Zelda team did. Like I
think it's guaranteed to do better than Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee.
Maybe, but here's the thing:
those still 10 million.
If the game sucks, I don't know if the game sucks. The reputation after the initial sales period might kill it. That's what I'm not saying it's going to suck.
I hear what you're saying, but like Sword and Shield, which by the way, I know it's controversial, right? But it did review relatively well.
It reviewed well
it's
and it sold well.
It sold really well. It's a 20+ million seller.
One of the best.
Yes, there is an audience that does not like Sword and Shield. I get that, but it still sold incredibly well.
Yeah.
Audience that loves it.
But I guess the point I'm making is that even with all that flack, Sword and Shield performed the way it did. And then let's go Pikachu and Eevee.
Yeah, I'm more talking about like if the critical reviews come out and it's just like a 50.
Right.
It's just
I feel like that's probably
bombed. I don't think that's likely, but it's also I understand that there is a certain leniency that certain IPs tend to bump scores a little bit in reviews. I think we all know that. That's just a thing. Like, would Skyward Sword really be rated at a 97, 98, 99? If it was a different IP, no. Would it still be in the 90s? Probably. The Zelda bump because it's so surprising because it's Zelda. The shock of that being a Zelda game,
right,
does bump the score a little bit. Doesn't mean it's not a 90+ game. So I kind of think like that's what Pokemon. I think it being Pokemon is going to give some leniency.
It's going to give a 3-point boost.
But also like, here's the thing. I think right now in the hardcore Pokemon community, not the general community. I think the general gaming community is always way less critical, and we don't hear about them. They're not on internet forums and Twitter even talking about this stuff, right? A majority of people that bought Breath of the Wild have not gone on the internet and said a damn thing about it. Same thing for Pokemon, same thing for Mario. Most Switch owners, the almost 90 million Switch owners out there, aren't on the internet click-clacking away even talking about Switch. But
they just enjoy it at home for an hour or two a night and
yeah, they don't care about debating passionately. They just play games for fun. Nothing wrong with that. That's Nintendo's forte, making games that are fun. So,
and that's why I don't expect most of my friends to watch my videos because not everyone is like us.
Like Eric, like he's on the podcast every week. He doesn't watch my videos most of the time, unless it's something that pops up. He's like, "Wait a second, what did Nate say?
Yeah,
what Banjo-Kazooie?
There's a new Donkey Kong. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, right.
But
yeah,
I will say that there is a huge chunk of the current hardcore base that typically shows up day one to buy the games that definitely does not trust Game Freak to ever pull off a game like this because they can't trust Game Freak to pull off the Pokemon series the way they wanted to. Not necessarily always Game Freak's fault. They have a lot of timelines that they're stuck in, having to keep up with the cartoon series and the animated series and specific things happening there, and the fact that for some reason the Pokemon Company doesn't really let Game Freak expand their team. They keep making the team just stay with like the couple hundred they have, when really Pokemon's one of the biggest IPs in the world. They should have one of the biggest development teams in the world, and they don't. So that's also a limitation as well. They keep keeping the cost of game creation low while the game sales remain high, while some argue the game quality keeps going down because of this rigorous schedule that they're put on and the fact they don't have enough team members.
That Sword and Shield did have the biggest Pokemon team yet. Like they have made efforts to grow, but it's kind of like
because expectations
their growth rate versus expectation. The jump to console, all of a sudden, it's no more the case that every game it's on a 3DS is at 240p and everything looks kind of like an indie game or lesser, right? Like all of a sudden everything's with HD visuals and there's open world games and things of that nature.
I think
and
one of the mistakes they made with Sword and Shield is that they used the old engine instead of making a new one. Like what made Breath of the Wild work was they built a new engine from the ground up. It wasn't built for Switch, but they did build a new engine for that game from the ground up. Here they used the 3DS engine, and you could tell while playing the game that's like, okay, these are things that like a new engine wouldn't limit you to. This is very it felt really like a natural evolution of the 3DS games, more so than going from like what people expect when you jump to console, right? So Mario jumps to console. Look at Mario 64 compared to the one before it. Fundamentally different kinds of Mario games and different engines. And people thought that is what we get when we finally get like this home console style Pokemon game. Instead, it was just like, oh, this is just that natural evolution of what we were already doing. Well, we have an open world section now. That's cool. We have an open field like Hyrule Field. Okay. But even like Hyrule Field, like doesn't make like as an example, Hyrule Field is great. Like I remember the Pokemon Company brought up the word open world one time, and I said no. No, you have Hyrule Field, Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, not open world games just because they have a giant field you can run around in. Okay? Just letting you know, that's not open world. Look at Breath of the Wild, look at the original Legend of Zelda, then look at Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess. Big
Huge
difference.
difference.
Huge difference.
But I do want to say that with Game Freak, it's interesting because they come out with games pretty much every single year. You can kind of see like the trajectory of where they're headed.
Oh yeah,
right.
They're very predictable.
So like for exactly. So for example, you look at the jump between X and Y to Sun and Moon. They finally did 3D graphics with X and Y, but then in Sun and Moon, they pulled back the camera. The environments looked a little bit more organic, less grid-like. It did seem like they're kind of starting to get closer to more of like a traditional adventure game. And then you look at Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. They put in Pokemon roaming in the environment and follow Pokemon. And these are ideas that we see all in Sword and Shield, right? And then we see the wild area, to your point. But then with the DLC, what happened? The DLCs were entirely wild area. So within that compartmentalized part of the world, it is open, right? And now with Legends Arceus, the next installment in the mainline series from Game Freak, it's an entirely open world. So I think the trajectory is that Legends Arceus is kind of like that experimental game. And then once we do see Generation 9, it's going to be far more open and far more polished than what we saw in Sword and Shield. Probably still not like Breath of the Wild though, so don't jump the gun, guys.
Yeah. So again, they clearly made that trailer to invoke Breath of the Wild vibes, but we'll see. We'll see if that was a mistake or not. I don't know. Here's the thing. We haven't seen a Pokemon game officially made like this. So I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt because this looks like the Pokemon game I've been wanting since I was a kid. So we'll see. I have hope that they can do it if they're given the right time to do it. And I don't know if they've been given enough time to do it, but I have hope.
I think the fact that it's coming out early 2022 as opposed to holiday 2021,
and
that bodes well for a bit more development time.
And they handed off, the remakes we're getting this year to an outside studio.
The first time ever they've done that. That
which
is so
tells
interesting.
Me how dedicated they are to this particular, because Bandai Namco does new Pokemon Snap, which by the way, Bandai Namco doing new Pokemon Snap isn't that big a deal, and it's actually a really good game. But then having an outside company do this game, clearly, what the heck has this team been doing since Sword and Shield? Pokemon Legends Arceus. Yeah, they have the DLC, but a huge chunk of the team, Pokemon Legends Arceus, and since that DLC's been done, that's it. That's all Game Freak's been working on. They outsourced everything else. So they're keeping the money train going. And I think if these remakes sell really well, there's a potential that this could become a regular thing where remakes are outsourced moving forward while they work on bigger, like Arceus blows up and these remakes sell well. This is the future. They're going to keep outsourcing remakes and keep doing these big things that we've been wanting them to do. It's almost like Game Freak's like, we heard you. You complained about Sword and Shield. We heard you. We got you. We just can't say anything about it yet. Now we can. It's kind of like, no, we did this to be safe. We needed a safe game to launch on Switch. Now that we got the sales from that, let's be risky. So I can kind of forgive them for all their past misgivings if this works out, but we'll see. And yeah, I think there's a chance we're obviously seeing that before E3, as you said. Pokemon news, Pokemon events before E3. It literally happens every single time, except when we didn't have E3. So
there you go.
Any other expectations you got?
I'm always going to go with the pattern, right? I mean, we've covered a lot. We mentioned Donkey Kong earlier. If Donkey Kong is a 2021 game, for sure I expect to see it at E3.
Oh yeah.
So that's definitely another one. Now I mentioned Breath of the Wild 2 already, but I think that probably deserves a bit more discussion, right? So we were talking about connecting the dots earlier, right?
The Zelda portion of our podcast,
yeah, right?
Yeah. I just want to say that, and we've mentioned, Nate, you and I have kind of talked about this before, but just on the note of connecting dots, right? If Legends Arceus is that fiscal year ending game, it does have that Breath of the Wild influence. Wouldn't you think it weird for Nintendo to release a sequel to Breath of the Wild around the same time? which kind of leads me to believe that Breath of the Wild 2 is not a March 2022 game, or
I can't see, yeah,
Legends
they can't release
Arceus
the
is
same
not
month.
early 2022, which it officially is right now.
I think if Breath of the Wild came out in early 2022 and Pokemon Legends Arceus also did, let's say they both hit early 2022. One's in January, one's in March. That's how it's split up.
They can't be a month with there's got to be some degree of separation there. And also
by the way, I don't
game like that
actually
come out
think
in
that
January?
I don't actually think that Pokemon and Zelda games take away from each other's sales.
Right,
I think they
right.
serve different audiences.
Yeah.
But I also think that Nintendo, it's not about hurting the game sales. It's about keeping consistent console sales month over month over month. That's what it's about, because they can only make so many systems at once. So keeping
Make good
consistent
point there.
console sales is why you would spread out
Giving people more
two
reason
big
to
games that
be
you
able to buy
expect to be.
games.
I mean, I think
System sellers.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
going to be
Oh,
10
yeah.
million plus sellers each.
Like Legends Arceus very likely could have some sort of bundle, right? There may be a light bundle, there may be a Switch Pro bundle,
And it might become the best selling Pokemon game of all time. That's the potential this game has. Breath of the Wild 2 might outsell the original Breath of the Wild.
Depending on
Maybe.
how it's marketed.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a great game, it's got to be great. It's got a ton of marketing and what they do with it. I think it's easily going to hit 10.
Yeah.
The question is, how much past
Yeah.
10 does it go?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. But to that point, right? So if Legends Arceus is that fiscal year ending game, that either means Breath of the Wild 2 is coming, I would say, a few months afterwards, or probably way later into the year, or it's the holiday game, which I don't think is crazy because the game started development in 2017 and it's based off of the Breath of the Wild engine. Like that's not lofty. Like
I honestly
the game
think
could have been delayed
if COVID wasn't a thing, it could have came last year. I honestly feel.
I initially thought that too. So
But then we got Hyrule Warriors instead, which was fine.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's fine. It does make you wonder, like, what was Nintendo's actual plan for 2020 before the delays?
Yeah.
Like, was 2020 always meant to be a slow year? Because based on what we've gone so far, I'm still kind of
when you look at
skeptical.
it, right? 2017, banger year. 2018, it was kind of a slow year besides Smash, right? Yeah, they had their big game, but there really wasn't much.
They closed strong. Yeah, November and December were strong with Pokemon and Smash, but then before that, it was like not much.
Yeah.
It seems like whenever they have a hard
then 2019
year, it's big.
Then 2019, obviously the totality of 2019, pretty damn good year. As good as 2017, debatable, depends on your taste in games, but still, it was a really damn good year. Then you get into 2020. Okay, started off with a banger, Animal Crossing, and that's really it for system sellers. And
I mean, I really did like Origami King, but it's
there were other games. By the way, Nintendo had more exclusive games released last year than people realize, but it still was obviously, compared to 2019, not as good. Compared to 2017, not as good. So it's like every other year that Switch comes up with a bunch of games, and this is that other year. So,
and I think it's going to be to support hardware. To your point about how they want to have games coming out, with some spacing more for hardware sales.
Yep. So you got any other expectations? Or is that about wrap it up for you?
I mean, Breath of the Wild 2, for sure, I expect to see that and there to be Treehouse footage, but this is Zelda's 35th anniversary, right? So, maybe we see other things. Maybe we see Twilight Princess of Moonbreaker HD. Maybe we see Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Maybe we see something else. I think there's going to be other Zelda announcements. They'll at least probably mention Age of Calamity and Skyward Sword to some capacity, right? Like at least like a brief mention of that. So yeah, more Zelda anniversary stuff. And this is completely random, but I wouldn't be shocked if we see a new Kirby game.
Oh, I mean, yeah. There's a Kirby game every year. I don't know if it's going to get announced at E3, but there's a Kirby game every year. I mean, it could just be a Twitter drop later this year, but
could be.
There's literally Kirby. I don't think Kirby has to be shown at E3. Kirby kind of is setting its sales way. You're going to get a couple million. Move on with your day. And that's fine. I think Kirby doesn't have to be at E3, but there is the rumor out there. Again, Samus Hunter, 2 Kirby games supposedly coming this year. So,
right.
We'll see what those are. One of them is a spin-off, so I don't know if it's a new Kirby pinball or there's so many.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even just rumor, because we know Hal has plans for announcements this year. Like it's not crazy. So yeah, there is one more thing. Going beyond the Zelda stuff, the Donkey Kongs, the Metroids, the Mario Rabbids, the Bayonetta 3s, the Shin Megami Tenseis, the Xenoblades, like the
I'm getting
Pokemon.
excited.
There's all of that, right? And I think you'll agree with me on this, but a lot of the games we're talking about are projects that have been in development since around 2017, like with Monolith Soft and the Odyssey team and Splatoon. Splatoon 2 came out in 2017. Right now we're seeing Splatoon 3, and then obviously Breath of the Wild 2. Like all of these things, they started these projects in 2017. Well, there's another one. The Mario Kart team and ARMS team. ARMS came out in 2017. What are they working on? Is it Mario Kart 9? Is it F-Zero? Is it a new IP? I don't know, but they for sure have been working on something, and they have a good history with multiplayer games, and Nintendo has redone their online servers. So, I feel like there's a decent chance we see that this year. There's so much potential with all the games we already discussed. Like, it's hard for me to believe that all of this shows up at E3. So this might be a 2022 game, but they for sure have been working on something. So we might see that E3 as well.
That's a big one.
That's a big E3.
That's a big one. Out of all the games we've talked about, Mario Kart 9 is the ultimate system seller. It's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is number one on the sales chart still to this day.
35 plus million, right? It's now actually spreading itself away from Animal Crossing. We all thought Animal Crossing would catch it, but now Mario Kart is distancing itself again.
Here's my thing. The reason I doubt Mario Kart 9 is that you look at the success of 8 Deluxe, right? Came, a couple months or a month or so or whatever after the launch of Switch. Which, yeah, it was a port. We all know that. I'm not forgetting that it was a Wii U game, right? So we haven't had a new Mario Kart game besides Mario Kart Live Home Circuit in a long time. But it just sold over 10 million units in the last fiscal year. I feel like if they're working on something now, I'm hoping it's an F-Zero or something like that. And that I think with what 8 Deluxe did, that this might be the first generation we don't get a new traditional Mario Kart game, but they see what happened and they decide Mario Kart 9 is a launch game for the next system. So they finish whatever they're doing now, F-Zero, whatever, and then they start working on Mario Kart 9. That's a launch game, or within a month or so of launch for the next system. Just like I think, if you look at what Nintendo's doing, if the Mario Odyssey team isn't doing Odyssey 2, right? Everyone assumed Odyssey 2 or something like that's got to be coming. Oh, no, they're doing DK. After DK, where do you think the next Mario game's going? Launch game for the next system. So the next system's going to launch with Mario and Mario Kart within a couple months of each other, because we're getting Breath of the Wild 2 like now. So that's not going to be there. Breath of the Wild is still, the next major Zelda game instead is going to be the thing that comes in year 2 or year 3 of the system instead of year 1. Or maybe it's the game that comes at the end of year 1 if they decide to do an early launch again. I don't know if they will, but maybe they do decide, hey, we can launch our system whenever, especially when we have Mario and Mario Kart. But that's just something I'm throwing out there that, you know what? Maybe if you kind of look at, again, connecting the dots, if what is announced is not, which by the way, it could very well be Mario Kart 9. Samus Hunter is the one who's told me she doesn't think it's Mario Kart 9, but that's a personal opinion. If Mario Kart 9 is announced, God. Switch is going to the moon and back.
Yeah.
So,
I'm kind of curious what you think about
it. It might be a 40+ million seller in the first year. I'm not we just saw Animal Crossing do record numbers in 1 year. Just wait till Mario Kart 9 lands. Like half the Switch user base is going to buy that game in the first year. It'll have the biggest launch in maybe even gaming history, and that's including games that are multi-platform across a bunch of platforms. GTA 5 is an example. Really big launch across all these platforms. Have you seen what Mario Kart 9 can do on one? No, because they haven't done it yet.
But you think Mario Kart 9 is more likely a Switch 2 launch title?
I feel like, yeah. I've been talking for a while. I want Mario Kart 9, but I keep looking. It just did 10 million more sales. They'll probably do another 10 million of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe this year. It would be nice if they were just going to stick with Deluxe, if they give us at least another DLC pack for it or something with some extra.
I'd be down.
Like they did back on the Wii U. It'd be cool. Just give us a $20 DLC. Let us expand it a bit. Then we know, okay, yeah, you're not doing Mario Kart 9 now.
Mm-hmm.
But,
yeah.
That's just my gut's telling me that. But my mind also goes, does Nintendo want to turn down releasing Mario Kart 9 on potentially, guys, if Switch is really only halfway through its life cycle and they can keep it at 25+ million in sales, say the next 2 years, before it starts to sink below that for the last 2 years of the life or whatever. This might be Nintendo's best-selling platform of all time. In fact, it might become the best-selling video game platform ever in the history of platforms. Does Nintendo want to miss out on the chance to drop a Mario Kart 9 and sell 40+ million units on the best-selling hardware ever? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
kind of the
'Cause it
caveat. It's
kinda-
like, how much does Nintendo want money now versus do they think they can wait and use that to make the next system successful? And what
Mhm.
is the
Yeah.
next system?
Yeah.
That probably plays a role in it as well. Speaking of next systems, we did have a super chat earlier I want to get to quick because it deals with the Pro, which we weren't going to talk about today unless someone brought it up as an expectation. Retro Man did a $5 super chat earlier on our live show. Thank you so much for that. And he said, do you think the rumored Switch Pro is more likely to be revealed at E3? And if so, will it possibly be for HD games to come to Switch Pro? Which I find interesting because the Switch already does HD games.
Mhm.
So did the Wii U. So that's not really a new feature. I guess maybe to make more games in native HD resolution on the go, absolutely, it would help with that. I think that's a given. If it's more powerful, more games will hit 720p in handheld. So that will be very, very nice because even some of Nintendo games don't hit 720p in handheld. But as for do I think it's likely to be revealed at E3? No. Not unless they plan to launch it in August, which I don't think they're doing a summer launch for it. I think they are going to wait for a holiday period to release it. I could be wrong on that front, but if you remember, they launched Switch Lite very close to the holidays. I think that's the strategy. I think Switch Pro has the potential to be a bigger seller than the Lite was, and they're going to put that around the holidays, which means we're going to hear about it probably around September-ish. Maybe end of August if it's going to be like an October release, but Nintendo's not going to announce it at E3 and then not release it for 5 months because that's going to kill current sales. Everyone's just going to wait then, which you already have people right now waiting because all the rumors are kind of like so much smoke, everyone's waiting. So there are people legitimately not buying Switches. I've seen them in the comments, not buying Switches right now because they're waiting for the Pro. What's going to happen when they announce it? Sales die.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to wait. They're going to wait. There's going to be a major software title coming in between there to keep software sales going and some Switch sales going for people who just can't wait. They have to have that game. But yeah, I also think, and this was something Samus Hunter mentioned to me with the Pro in particular, is that Nintendo wants games announced before Switch Pro comes out that are going to take advantage of what Switch Pro does day one, because it's going to take updates to games to take advantage of what Switch Pro does. Out the gate, a lot of games are going to play the same unless they have unlocked frame rates. Unlocked frame rate games will obviously perform a little bit better. Unlocked, dynamic resolution games will just naturally have a better resolution, but games really won't be taking advantage of all the hardware out the gate, right? It's going to take an update to the game. So Nintendo wants games announced, which suggests there aren't any games announced yet that will take advantage of it day one. And this is where all the theories come in about Breath of the Wild 2 potentially being like a very close to launch date game for it, taking advantage of it day one. Other games they announced for later this year, taking advantage of it day one. And those games aren't announced yet. And the theory, I guess the thought process is you announce these games at E3 and you show them and everyone's super excited about Breath of the Wild 2, super excited about Mario Kart 9, all these awesome games.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they show Switch Pro, those games you thought looked awesome on your current Switch, yeah, that was all running on the current Switch. Here's what it looks like on the new one.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, I already thought this game was good. Now I get 60 FPS, Breath of the Wild 2.
Oh my goodness.
Running at native resolution, 1080p. Oh, and look at that upscale to 4K. Look at that upscale to 4K on a giant. I mean, it's going to be hard to see in a video form, right? It's going to have to be seen in person. That's the big thing about 4K. You're not really going to notice a big thing about that. They will really, if this does exist, it does not port 4K. Nintendo will release a 4K Breath of the Wild 2 trailer. So you will be able to directly compare them side to side, but that's through YouTube compression, and you're not really going to see the big advantage so you have it in front of you and on your TV. But I think that's kind of the big caveat with the Switch Pro. Now, that's my thought. Maybe Andre disagrees. Maybe he thinks we are getting Switch Pro, and he just didn't want to bring it up because that wasn't a topic on the agenda today. But what do you think, bud?
So I just want to speak on the 60 FPS Zelda thing because like I remember I think you were one of the people that like sort of like really kind of highlighted this feature, right? Like Skyward Sword is 60 frames per second, right? The HD one, the HD remaster.
First ever 3D Zelda game to be 60 FPS on the platform. Yes, Wii U Breath of the Wild on emulators is 60, but we haven't had an official release from Nintendo that's a 3D Zelda game that's a 60 FPS ever. We have had handheld. A Link Between Worlds was 60 FPS as an example. Well,
Yeah. But
not for 3D Zelda. It's always been 30.
Yeah, that's just kind of crazy. Now, obviously, Skyward Sword it's Skyward Sword. It was
that
a Wii
taxing.
game.
Yeah, it's not that
Right.
taxing.
And I would assume that Breath of the Wild 2 on base Switch will not be 60 frames per second.
No.
But perhaps, the Skyward Sword HD remaster being in 60 FPS is a hint that Nintendo does want to move in that direction. And with the Switch Pro, we do see Breath of the Wild 2 at 60 frames per second. That would be very, very exciting to see. Absolutely.
I think Nintendo developers are like, you guys think gamers know that 60 FPS provides a smoother gameplay experience. You think game developers don't know that?
Right.
I bet you, if nothing else, Switch Pro is a push from the development teams, like especially of Zelda, that say, "Hey, we really want 60 FPS. Give us the hardware to do it, please."
Mm-hmm.
So
I think the game would really benefit from it, because if you look at Breath of the Wild, a lot of the mechanics in terms of like combat and such were very highly timing based, like with the parries and things of that nature, especially if you look at some of the crazier mechanics you do that kind of take advantage of the systems in place. But one thing that I sort of felt that was a little bit lacking with Breath of the Wild was the combat. Not that you couldn't, if you use the environment, there's so much you can do. But in terms of like the core, like, weapon mechanics and how you do the typical things, it did feel like they simplified things to a little bit, although there were more weapon types. But I feel like it's one of the things they can improve upon in Breath of the Wild too. And with improved combat, comes perhaps more of an importance on having 60 frames per second gameplay. Like that could push it to another level in terms of smoothness and reaction times and such. So I think that's something that, would definitely benefit the games if they were to do that. So I do kind of hope that happens. And I do think Switch Pro is real. Like, yes, there's a trend, right? There's a trend that every 2 years we see hardware. We see Nintendo put out a lot more software to support that. The pattern suggests it. Bloomberg has reported it. Nikkei has reported it. Samus Hunter has said it, right? Like, I definitely think it's happening.
Yeah.
All signs have been kind of pointing
IGN's talked
towards
about it. Jeff Grubb's talked about it. It's just,
yeah,
it's
Nate
everywhere.
the Hate, for example.
Everybody,
like a lot of
it's
insiders.
it's like the worst kept secret.
The screen
Everybody
manufacturers
knows
talked about it.
it's there. And the fact that smoke really picked up this year lets you know it's because game developers have it. They have it. They're using it. And we're just, people always think, well, if the game developers having it, why aren't we hearing specs? Huh? Did you hear specs about the Nintendo Switch before it came out? We didn't even know what hardware it was using before it came out.
Nintendo's always been very good about the spec situation.
Yeah, they're NDAs. I mean, people talked about it. There was, God, I can't remember. It was. I think it was the CD Projekt Red who talked about, because they had Switch dev hardware, because they were trying to get Witcher 3 on it long before it was ever announced, and before Switch even came out. And they talked about how like the NDAs Nintendo had on it, like, if you were developing on it, you weren't even allowed to tell people that you were developing on this platform. It was only like a handful of people that could know. It was kept in a locked room by a manager. Not even other managers knew that they had that hardware in the company. Like, Nintendo's NDA was so strict to not let any leaks get out about specs. Now, obviously, leaks got out about, it's a hybrid. It's just like, right? And Nintendo had.
I wonder if that was
intentional,
intentional.
but maybe. I mean, there's always that. You always wonder if certain things get out to kind of gauge how people react to it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, specs never really came out until after the 2016 reveal. Then we started to hear a little bit more about what the specs might be, because now it's officially unveiled. That's the thing with the Pro. We've heard 4K, we've heard DLSS. Okay, but we don't actually know what that means, other than, well, clearly they're using, I don't know, a newer GPU that's capable of using DLSS. That's all we can really confirm. We don't even know for sure if that's using, RT cores for it or Tensor Core. We have no idea, right? We assume, because we know what DLSS means for us today for NVIDIA GPUs. But what's it mean for Nintendo? What's it mean for the mobile side? We don't know. So that's it. It's all speculation at that point. We don't actually know. Well, what's the RAM going to be?
Mm-hmm.
What's the storage going to be? What kind of CPU are they using? Which ARM one are they using? Are they using this one? Are they using that one? How fast is it going to be? We don't know any of this stuff.
It's also possible that
OLED
it ends
panels
up just
got out
being
because
like
of
a 4K
manufacturing.
upscale.
Yeah, Yeah, like the OLED panels we know about because that's from manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
We always hear about stuff from manufacturing. The actual raw specs, dude, Nintendo has a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if like the number of developers that are messing with the Switch Pro right now is less than 100. And they might be working at companies with thousands of employees, and the employees there don't even know because that's how locked down this platform is until Nintendo announces it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. But yeah, E3, I don't think it's happening unless it's releasing this summer, which they could. They have released revisions in the summer before, but they released the Switch Lite around holidays. I think they're going to do the same thing here. I think it's going to be paired with a major game like a Breath of the Wild. Maybe it's paired with Mario Kart 9. I don't know. Paired with something.
Yeah. I don't know, but like I don't think. Well, first the Mario Kart situation, right? Like, I wanted to ask you because there has been kind of like this argument, like, all right, so people argue that because Mario Kart Deluxe has sold so much that Nintendo doesn't need to bring out another Mario Kart. I kind of get that, but the counter argument is, well, you could have said the same thing about Splatoon 2, except now we're getting Splatoon 3, right? Like both games sold really, really well, and yet we're getting a sequel to Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 3.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought about it a little bit. I feel like there's a little bit of a difference between Splatoon 2 selling like 10 plus million or something, and then correct me if I'm wrong. It might be a little bit more than that, but Mario Kart Deluxe has sold 35 plus million and is now distancing itself from Animal Crossing. Like, there's a huge difference between 35 plus million and still outpacing games that are selling really well from last year versus 10 million, which is, that's, I'm not saying it's peaked necessarily, but there's a big difference there. Like, they may not feel like they need to put out another Mario Kart with Mario Kart Deluxe still outpacing games even today. It's a little different.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. All right. I think it's. I get in the mind now because oh boy. I did do a video on I think a rather safe expectations for E3. A lot of it kind of the way rumors have swayed me. But it's time. It's time to take off the safety goggles.
Yeah,
Here we go. I'm ready for some bombs, man.
All right. This E3 is a big deal, right? We're dropping bombs ourselves during E3. All the giveaways, all that jazz. But let's be real. None of that matters. Well, I should say none of it matters. Giveaways are always cool. But none of it really matters if E3 doesn't bring it. So it's time for bombshells. Whatever the hell Microsoft is doing with Switch is getting announced at E3.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever the hell it is. Hasn't even been brought up. Jeff Grubb put out there that he heard everything in the background of Phil Spencer and Microsoft stuff has something to do with something Microsoft's working on, including the Switch. Because the Switch was in the background of Phil Spencer during a show he did earlier in the year. Then, this is what was even crazier. It was either ID at Xbox or some sort of Xbox event. I can't remember the exact name. I apologize. I obviously don't cover Xbox full time. I did stream the event or watch the event after, one of the two. In the background, every time the host was talking in the background, they had 3 platforms shown conveniently dead center on the screen. Xbox Series S on the first one, Xbox Series X in the middle, Nintendo Switch on top. That is prominently featuring a Nintendo platform in a major Xbox event. Nothing else. No Death Stranding characters, because there's all the speculation about Death Stranding or Kojima something happening. That's fine. But they prominently, in a major Microsoft event, had Switch just there. Not casually in the background of Phil Spencer, where he's got a billion things in the background. Just 3 platforms, nothing else in the background. Switch was there. Something's getting announced at E3. I don't know what. Speculation on xCloud, maybe Game Pass. I don't know, because there is streaming on Switch. So Nintendo's obviously not anti-game streaming. Hitman, game streamed, right? Control, game streamed on Switch. They're not against it, but they don't have a uniform delivery method for it. That's where xCloud could come into play. Does it mean we're going to get Game Pass? I don't know, but that's where xCloud could come into play. That's my giant mind-bending thing. Microsoft is going to be something. Now, it might not be that. It could just be, another indie game's coming. It could just be Master Chief is coming to Smash. That could be the big thing they're teasing.
Yeah.
That would be a pretty big deal. That would be a pretty big deal. They could be teasing, hey, you know what? We're going to throw Nintendo even a bigger bone. Master Chief Collection. It's going to Switch natively. Why? Because Microsoft don't care.
Right.
They want their stuff on everything, and they keep throwing Nintendo bones. Cuphead. They didn't have to let us have Cuphead. They did. The developer wanted to put it there, and Phil Spencer said, yup.
Yeah.
Oh, fans want Banjo-Kazooie and Smash? Phil Spencer says, should have put them in there 10 years ago. Yup. Oh, you guys like the Ori games? Sure. Go ahead and put both of them on Switch. Oh, and you know what? Heck, they want to go on PlayStation. They can go over there too. Phil Spencer doesn't care. Now, they obviously care about certain exclusives. Like, that's why Bethesda games aren't going to be going over to PlayStation, besides Deathloop. But what if it's that? This is another thing to consider. We've been getting all these Bethesda games. What if that's not going to stop?
Yeah.
What if, despite them buying it, the next Doom, the next Elder Scrolls, that's also coming to Switch?
No.
They're not going to stop that. And the big thing is, Phil Spencer loves Nintendo. He'll say PlayStation's doing a great thing, and he'll say all the right things about them to not start any drama. He doesn't really seem as interested in console warring per se with words. Actions, sure. We're not going to release these games outside of the Xbox ecosystem. Sure. But not with like words. He's not interested in mincing words. But what has he said on record about Switch and Nintendo this generation? Nintendo is a treasure to him. Needs to be preserved if they ever got in a bad spot and we're going to go bankrupt. Needs to be preserved. Needs to be saved. Nintendo is too important to the past, present, and future of this industry. And here we go. Better Together updates of Minecraft. Phil Spencer loves Nintendo. And by the way, back in the day, Microsoft did try to partner with Nintendo on a system at one point. Fell through, obviously, like every other partnership besides the Philips CDI, I suppose. Was that really even a real partnership?
The unprecedented partnership? Oh, wait.
The unprecedented partnership with EA.
Oh, wait.
Obviously, we all know about the Sony Nintendo fallout as well back in the day. So, yeah, it didn't obviously come to fruition. Microsoft and Nintendo didn't work together on a platform. And they might, I'm not saying they're going to be working together on a platform in the future. I think Nintendo is very much, we're going to do our thing, you do your thing when it comes to platforms. But Phil Spencer doesn't seem to mind about putting games on Switch. Working directly with Nintendo, letting them put whoever they want in Smash, including I wouldn't say probably, but possibly Master Chief. Which I've talked about how I don't think it's going to happen because I think it creates an expectation that now you need to get a Sony character, like Nathan Drake or something in, and Sony ain't going to play ball. Sony ain't letting that happen. I'd be shocked.
I just think it's just too many Microsoft characters already because we got both Banjo and Minecraft Steve.
But here's the thing. But neither of those characters were created by Microsoft.
Right.
Banjo's history is on N64.
Right.
Minecraft was an indie game.
Right.
So Minecraft was already on everything before Microsoft bought it. Banjo was originated on Nintendo.
The only reason why they're Microsoft characters is because
they're
Microsoft
characters, but when people think Banjo, when people think Minecraft, they don't think Microsoft.
Right.
Yeah, but at the same I'll throw another counter argument though. And I'm not just saying it's impossible, right? Because I've also suggested maybe Master
Sonic,
Chief.
That's Sega, right? Master Chief, that's the mascot for and Phil Spencer wouldn't say
why
no,
would they put the Switch inside their streams as if it's like one of their own platforms?
That's what
it
I'm
almost
saying.
Feels like they're showing it off
xCloud.
like it's their own handheld option.
Like xCloud has to be right? It doesn't feel like Master Chief and Smash, that's great, but xCloud?
Or some version of xCloud.
Like literally they're treating it in their streams like, oh yeah, this is just casually one of our platforms. Why? Unless
you got the Bethesda games, you got the
xCloud
indie
is coming.
games.
I mean, what if it is? What if they said, because remember what they said about Bethesda games, right? They didn't say Xbox platforms. They said, besides current contracts, all future Bethesda games will be on Game Pass platforms. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you got to say that because Game Pass is part of xCloud on phones and all that jazz. If xCloud is on Switch, does that mean Game Pass is on Switch and now you just get to play the entire Microsoft library on Switch and they just don't care because they want Game Pass and xCloud everywhere? That's like mind-blowing. And if he knows about the Switch Pro coming and that it's going to have the 4K upscaling that could work with the xCloud even better, like, holy crap. I had
this crazy idea.
I can throw my Series X in the trash.
I'm really curious what you think on this because I had this crazy idea that I did during my podcast on Sunday. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm just really curious what you think of it.
Sure.
So we have this, as you're saying, this collaboration between Nintendo and Microsoft, something, right? Game Pass kind of makes sense, right? But maybe it's too soon. There's all the logistical issues, and there's all these different games. If it was on like Switch's eShop, it would kind of devalue all the other third-party games on there potentially, right? So it seems kind of weird. But then we also have these rumors about Nintendo sort of overhauling or reviving their legacy content platform.
And Shinichiro Furukawa announced that, part of the $800 million they're investing is in Nintendo Switch Online.
So what if there's an adapted sort of platform coming that's involving Nintendo and Microsoft, and it's perhaps combining some Microsoft games and Nintendo's legacy content, and maybe that's where we see things like Entity Congress. It's a crazy idea. I'm not. It's what's happening.
I mean, Microsoft and Nintendo behind the scenes are just all
right,
just laughing away at it. So that's crazy. So that's like right off the bat, something's happening. I don't know what. We can speculate till the moon comes back, and we will on the pre-show for E3 2021. Sure to tune in June 12th. We're gonna have a 2-hour pre-show before anything else is happening, before even E3, because the ESA is gonna have their own pre-show. We're gonna be 2 hours before that pre-show. Don't even worry about it. If we have to do it at 5 a.m., we're here. 3 a.m., we're here. It won't be because it's gonna be on West Coast time, so it's gonna probably be like 9 their time, so 7 our time. But whatever, it's gonna happen. Giveaways, crazy stuff, and we'll be talking specifically about this more in depth. It's actually one of my planned segments in the pre-show. It's going to be a planned segment on Nintendo's Day, and if nothing gets announced then, it'll also be a planned segment to revisit on Microsoft's Day, because it could be announced by Microsoft instead of Nintendo. Could also be a joint announcement. Maybe Microsoft leads into Nintendo, and it leads in with the joint announcement. Who the hell knows? So, because we don't have the E3, we can't even speculate on that because we don't have the schedule yet.
Right.
I presume Nintendo and Microsoft are on different days, but maybe they're not.
Yeah.
We don't know. So other major predictions. By the way, I saw someone in the chat mention, Master Chief isn't their mascot, so that wouldn't be the thing for Smash. It's Forza. And I'm like, Master Chief originated on Xbox. Halo was the game that put Xbox on the map. And Master Chief is on the box for Series X. On the box. That's their mascot.
It'd be fun to see a car in Smash, though.
It would be a Forza car. Forza, by the way, is owned by them, but yes, Forza's a big deal. Not as big a deal as Master Chief and Halo. And Halo's always been. When have you seen Halo on anything but PC and Xbox?
Yeah. Master Chief driving around in a Forza car.
Yeah. So yeah, Master Chief is very much their mascot. It's their Mario, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's their mascot. Sony's mascot's a little more up in the air. Is it Spider-Man now? Is it because they own the rights to all the Spider-Man video games? Is it Nathan Drake? Is he even going to be in another Uncharted game, or is his story done? Is it Kratos from God of War? Is it what's the name of the girl in Horizon? I don't even know her name.
I forgot her name. Yeah.
Is it her? Because they have a new game for that coming out this year, Forbidden West. Yeah, there's a whole lot of is it Elle now from Last of Us? Like, there's a whole lot of characters. None of them seem to be like a central character that represent the company. Back in the day, people felt it was Crash, way back in the day. But they never owned Crash. It was always a third-party character. It's just
Alloy,
no other platform.
That was her name.
No other platform had. What was her name?
Alloy.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah,
Alloy.
Alex Christie pointed it out in the chat.
Yeah, Alloy. So thank you for pointing that out. So like, they don't have really a universal considered mascot. Maybe they're trying to push Astrobot as that mascot, because that comes with every PlayStation 5, and they've had other games in that franchise before. So maybe that's what they're kind of pushing now as their mascot.
Ratchet and Clank looks really good.
Ratchet and Clank as well. You can't forget them. So Sony's kind of the one that they're the one without a central mascot. Like, I mean, hey, I'm not going to knock Sony, guys. They have announced today 25 new games in development, with like 12 or 14 of them being brand new IP. That's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
That's awesome. And all of them are in development for PlayStation 5. So I mean, we got to give it up for Sony. Now, are any of these games coming out in the next 3 years? That's the other question. But Sony likes to announce things super early and then not give it to you for 3 or 4 years. But it doesn't matter. We are getting some of it. We are getting Forbidden West this year, supposedly. That and Ratchet and Clank coming up real soon. Real soon.
Well, are we supposed to get both Horizon and God of War this year still? Like, they're still technically slated?
I
for
think
2021?
I think they're still listed as this year. They more guaranteed Forbidden West than they did God of War, but we'll see. And obviously
I
Ratchet and
mean,
Clank.
between if they get all, I mean, Ratchet and Clank. I mean, if all those games come out, that's a killer lineup. Like
Oh yeah. Yeah,
typically,
no
you
no
know,
Sony hate here, guys. They have a killer lineup coming up, and I
mhm,
think Microsoft, speaking of E3, is going to have a killer lineup.
Mhm.
looking forward to it.
They have literally all the studios that they just bought the last 3 years, including a little, unknown one in Bethesda. You know, just a little minor indie studio out there, no big deal.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen with the next Elder Scrolls? Like, is that gonna be exclusive to
Game Pass.
Game Pass platforms?
Game
So in
Pass
other words,
platforms.
not PlayStation.
Yeah. And that's what it's going to be. Phil Spencer said it. He already said it. That game, by the way, is not coming out for like 5 years. Just so
Yeah.
that game is so far out. But yeah, that's going to be Game Pass. Yeah, I don't think any Bethesda game but Deathloop is going to Sony. And Deathloop's just because it's a contract.
Mm-hmm.
So I literally don't think any other Bethesda game's going there. Starfield coming out this year. It's going to be on only Game Pass platforms. Phil already told us. He literally told us we shouldn't expect anything else. If it happens, it's because Sony finally let Game Pass be on their system, which they're not going to let that happen. They're going to make their own competing something eventually. In fact, Sony kind of said at their investors meeting, they have sort of a pseudo answer. It's not going to be the same thing because they don't feel like they can afford to do the same thing, which, by the way, Game Pass is a heavy investment. Not every company in the world, even billion-dollar companies, can afford to do it. Just look at Netflix and how much money got sunk into that before it started making money. That's
Subscription-based services, though, is where the money is at.
Well, that's where the money is at long haul.
Right.
Now, Nintendo, people always wonder, is
consistent cash
Nintendo
flow.
going to do a service? Yeah, maybe for the retro games. That's like the rumor out there. I don't think
Well,
they're going
I
to do a
mean-
service for their main games until a point reaches their main games aren't dropping 20+ million in sales. They sell too much individually in traditional way. How long will that happen? How long will that maintain? I don't know. But
There's just something about Nintendo because they have like that history, right? And they're almost their games are almost like collector's items. So like because of that, you know, there is like a lot of like the gaming fan base that wants to sort of maintain that piece of history and still collect something. And Nintendo's kind of more along those lines as opposed to Sony or Microsoft.
Mhm.
So
I'll say
you know,
this.
yeah.
If physical games go away someday, Nintendo will be the last holdout.
Oh yeah.
It'll be with cartridges, I'm sure, but they
Oh,
will
yeah.
be the last holdout for physical.
They might
games.
just double down on Amiibo then or something.
And it's
Like,
funny because digital is growing for them, but they're not abandoning physical.
Mhm.
I don't think anytime soon. So, all right, other predictions because that's a huge one. That again, not guaranteed to happen. There's not even really rumors floating around about it. It's just Jeff Grubb said it means something. He doesn't even know what it means. That's why he doesn't keep talking about it. He said what he said. He has no updates on it. He's heard nothing. He just knows it means something. And then it
I'll
keeps
say that
keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. I'm sure. I mean, God, if they don't announce it at E3, but Microsoft in their press conference just casually has a Switch on screen somewhere, but
People are gonna
nothing
freak
announced
out.
for it.
Yeah.
People are gonna be like, "What?" And they'll be like, "Oh, have you guys seen that platform?" Yeah, okay, we're not talking about that. See you next week.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
what? What,
Yeah.
what do you mean? What do you mean? Tune into
Yeah.
Nintendo tomorrow. All right, that I could believe
Okay.
I'm saying.
I'll tell you though that if we go back to 2019, was it 2019? I'm fairly certain during 2019 there were rumors for both Master Chief Collection and Rare Replay to come to Switch. They were rumors; they haven't materialized yet, but they might start to materialize. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, totally.
so you know, or maybe on Game Pass. Maybe we see those things on Game Pass.
Oh yeah. So other predictions. Obviously, a lot of what Andre said, I feel is likely. Even Eric, a lot of these games coming, I feel are pretty likely. What I found interesting was until Andres brought up the stuff about Kingdom Battle, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, about how there was like a new one being made and he expects to see it. I wasn't thinking about that. I probably would have put that in my predictions video if I was. But here's the thing: if that game isn't shown, I personally feel like this might be the first E3 that I can remember that Mario is not part of it.
Mm.
Because if we don't get Kingdom Battle, I don't think we're getting Mario Kart 9. I don't think we're getting Mario anything this E3. because the Mario team that would release a Mario game is doing DK.
Mhm.
If Mario Kart 9 isn't going to come now, but it's going to come next year, or it's going to be a launch game for the next platform, and Kingdom Battle 2 isn't announced there, and that might not even be announced by Nintendo. That'll probably be announced by Ubisoft.
Mhm.
So for Nintendo themselves, they might not even talk about Mario during E3. And
I'll tell you that there is a Mario
I
Party
literally
rumored.
can't remember a time that Mario was not mentioned at E3. But someone in the chat might be able to go back through old E3s and maybe find one. I don't even think one exists. There's been so many spinoffs. I don't think E3 exists.
Breath of the Wild year? Did they mention anything with Mario?
See,
Well,
this is
2016
Treehouse
was
here.
only Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, the Breath of the Wild was the only thing they announced, but they were showing off. No, I think during because you guys remember we got Color Splash that year. I'm pretty sure Treehouse played Color Splash on stream. Pretty sure
Possible.
because that came out after.
Oh yeah, good point.
So I'm pretty sure
Um,
Nintendo Tree. So yeah, it wasn't in their digital event because they didn't really have one. It was just the
Mhm.
Breath of the Wild event. But I'm
Right.
pretty sure that Treehouse, which was part of E3, did play Color Splash. I mean, like no Mario games involved at all. Nothing. Now, you say that. Next thing you know, Treehouse is playing Super Mario Party, which isn't a new game, but they're showing off the online features.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I don't know what Treehouse is gonna do.
They could
we'll
be
see.
playing Kingdom Battle too.
They could be playing Kingdom Battle as well. Here's my thing. So now that comes up, okay, I fully expect Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, or at least like another Kingdom Battle game. If it's not
Mhm.
Mario and it's a different IP, maybe they go with Zelda because of the 35th anniversary. I don't know. Something Kingdom Battle I think is coming. I always felt the new one was going to come because the last one sold so well. It
Right.
felt
Mhm.
weird that we weren't
Right.
hearing anything about a new one
Right.
because the last one leaked hardcore. This one's not really leaking that much if it does exist.
Right.
So, kind of interesting there. I'm also worried about what kind of game it's going to be, but we'll talk about that later. And then we have to talk about just what Nintendo's got on slate. So, outside of all the games already talked about, I keep thinking, okay, if we're not getting Mario Kart 9, then what are we going to get? I feel like I'm going to do it. I'm going to go there. I didn't go there in my predictions video. I'm going to go there now. F-Zero's coming back.
Bro.
Oh, boy.
No.
No.
Don't play with my heart.
No,
Don't
I'm
play
going
with
there.
my heart.
Oh,
Going
boy.
there. F-Zero's
Yeah.
coming. We're getting F-Zero
that's what
announced
the-
at this E3. I don't know if it's going to release this year. Might be and that might be another Splatoon 3 2022. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter if it's this
What if
year or
that's
next
what
year.
what
It
if that's
being what the Mario Kart
announced
announced
is
at
working
all.
on?
I think the game that the Mario Kart team is working on is F-Zero. Not an ARMS
Stop it.
2,
Yeah.
not a new Mario Kart. F freaking Zero. Coming back, Falcon Punch. It's happening.
I wanna add to your
I-
point.
I don't have any. By the way, there's no rumors.
Yeah.
There's nothing supporting this happening beyond the fact that the Mario Kart team is making something, which doesn't really support anything.
Yeah.
There is something. There is
Oh.
something.
Oh, you're gonna pull my heartstrings now even further.
Yeah,
go.
it's I have to caution you guys. Like, not everything is a tease, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
Nintendo does tease things, like when they teased
yeah.
Luigi's Mansion with Smash Bros. Like they teased Splatoon 3 with the SOS signal last year. But then other times, like with the Mario Watermelon thing, it's just Mario with a watermelon. Even though we did get Mario Sunshine.
Or like Reggie wearing the Mother 3 pin or the Metroid pin, and like it ended up
I
being
think
nothing.
I think
Yeah.
Reggie meant to tease the Metroid things, but with Metroid Prime 4 being delayed, it was just ripped out
that
of
was
the Game
so
Awards
long
show.
ago. That was
Yeah.
before the Game Awards even existed that he teased it with the Metroid pin.
Oh, you talking about like with the
Way
Cranky
back
Kong,
in the
the
day when
Cranky
everyone-
Kong controversy. Yeah. That
Oh,
time
we
I
gotta do
think that
Metroid.
was
It's like, no, it's Cranky Kong.
yeah,
What?
yeah. That time I agree. That was just
That was
just a pin,
trolling. That was
sure.
epic trolling.
for sure. But
To be fair, that
Again,
event sucked. So-
yeah, I don't think this is absolutely a hint, but I think it's worth noting. Similar to how we've seen Smash be used to tease things in the past, I think they might have been doing it again. When we saw that ARMS presentation for Min Min, Captain Falcon had quite a presence during that little
Yup.
Smash presentation.
Yes.
So,
It's
just putting
happening.
it out there.
Confirmed.
maybe.
F-Zero is getting announced at E3. F-Zero's
I'm
happening.
gonna. I can't say the same thing with as much confidence as you, but I certainly would cry and scream all at the same time if it did get announced.
So this is one that
Very
no
happy.
one's talked about, but I think is just more so like if Mario's going to be part of the presentation, I think this is. I know there's some speculation out there that another Mario Party's coming. Probably. There's probably another Mario Party coming. The first one sold really, really well. They have a tendency to release multiple Mario Parties per system. There's going to be another Mario. I don't know if it's coming this year or next year, but there's going to be another Mario Party game. My thing is... Oh, and by the way, I totally forgot because Mario Golf Super Rush actually comes out after. They'll probably at least play it on Treehouse if they don't talk about it during the event. So I guess there will be probably something Mario. But now that I was thinking even deeper about this, there's a certain movie being made featuring our plumber.
Yeah.
That's been in development for years. It's Miyamoto's pet project at the moment. I think we get a reveal trailer during E3.
A trailer for that. Nice.
Ooh.
Now,
but
I'm
it's
actually
not during the
worried.
direct. It's
I'm
like
a little bit
trailer
worried
drop.
to play that trailer, because maybe I have copyright music. But then I'm like, it's Nintendo. It's going to be like Nintendo music, so I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
It won't be like the Sonic trailers where it's got copyrighted music. Or maybe it will be. I have no idea. But, I think the Mario movie gets unveiled. Whether or not it looks good, I'm not going to make any predictions on what it is. What it looks like, how the story feels.
Is it an Illumination, though?
Does Mario somehow translate?
Yes.
I don't know.
Okay. Illumination does a really good job
Well,
with movies.
some people don't like Illumination's movies.
Oh.
Some people hate Minions and all that stuff.
Well, they're wrong.
Sometimes all it takes is appropriate direction. So, I think Miyamoto...
I think it's just personal taste, to be honest.
will make it feel like a Mario thing, at least. And I think that's the thing about...
Like Minions, guys, the Minions are all slapstick comedy, and if you're not into that, you're not going to like it. Just like you probably don't
Swap
like
the Minions for Toads. Just do it. I'll tell you that I think that lately with video game movies, there's been like this growing trend to kind of stick closer to the root of what makes that game so special. Because in the past, I think it was more about like just appealing to modern trends to make a movie be successful. But now I think when it comes to video game movies, there's a better understanding that having that movie represent the franchise is a better way to make that movie be good. So while I'm not saying this Mario movie is going to be an award-winning movie, I think it's still going to be something that Mario fans will enjoy. I think that's why Nintendo is making sure that Miyamoto is still involved with this. So it's going to at least be that. So if you're a Mario fan, I think you'll still enjoy it. It probably won't be like a 5 out of 5 star movie, but maybe, an enjoyable 3.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's going to get shown off at E3.
There you go.
So guys, I'm going with things that I'm not 100% sure are really going to happen, but all the obvious has been covered.
Right.
Sorry.
But how about this one? Grezzo. Everyone's talking about what Grezzo is doing for Zelda, right? What remake are they working on? Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. Are they bringing back Oracle games? Brand new top-down Zelda IP announced at E3. Brand new. Don't know if it comes out. It might be for the end of the 35th anniversary, so it might be next year. That one's fine. I think to put a little bit closer to Pokemon Arceus. Yeah, baby. Who says top-down Zelda's dead? Not this guy. Not this guy. They just did Link's Awakening. Fundamentally different gameplay. And Grezzo did Link's Awakening. Grezzo did...
It's still at least 4 million.
Heroes.
It was great. Yeah.
Grezzo is going to take that engine, redo the visuals, of course, so it's its own thing. And they're going to release a new top-down Zelda game. And that's now going to become the top-down Zelda team. Officially. Grezzo is going to make all future top-down Zelda games. Now, they're not going to say that, of course.
Well, right.
But I'm just saying that's what's going to end up happening. They're going to be the one making all the future top-down
because
Zelda games.
the actual Zelda team is going to be focusing on their 3Ds.
Yeah.
Probably.
And that might upset some people because maybe you'd rather have them HD, Ocarina of Time 3D, and Majora's Mask 3D. And that's fine. Maybe they're also doing that. I have no idea. They have like 3 or 4 teams. But I'm just saying that that's the obvious. We ain't talking about the obvious here. I'm going to the moon and back.
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to die on this hill. I already did a video with the obvious expectations. We just had you guys go through the obvious expectations. Forget the obvious. Forget the obvious. As an example, Platinum Games, right? We know they're doing Bayonetta, right? Probably going to see Bayonetta 3. If we don't, maybe we'll see it at the Game Awards or something. But Bayonetta 3 is pretty far into development. I don't think Platinum Games has had much issue with it. They keep saying the only reason they haven't said anything about it is because Nintendo won't let them. So clearly they think the game is way far enough along to be showing at least. And Nintendo...
They're saving it might be a Switch Pro thing.
Yeah, it could be a Switch Pro thing, or it could just be they're waiting for like what they feel is the right time to release it. I feel like 2020 Probably would have been a nice time to release it when we were
Right.
having kind of a software drop, but maybe it wasn't done yet. So I think that's not the only game we have coming from Platinum. Guys, remember the last time that they touched Bayonetta and put it on a Switch? A certain, let's call it a side quest that existed in that game. This is predating other games that maybe had some cameo appearances. There was a certain Star Fox side quest that they just threw into Bayonetta for no reason when they brought it over. Nintendo has hired Platinum Games to make the next Star Fox game, announced this E3.
Wow.
Platinum Games has publicly stated that they want to make a Star Fox game. This was years ago. Hence why they put Star Fox optional side mission in Bayonetta.
To just kind of show Nintendo what they can do.
I'm just saying. And we also happened when Nintendo tried to make one. Zero didn't go over so well with fans. I think it's better than fans give it credit for, but I think some of the shortcomings make the rest of it not nearly as enjoyable as it could be for some people. I know there's some people that love Zero, by the way, and that's fine. Just like people love Star Fox Adventures, but it didn't really sell well. I get it. Platinum Games was hired to make a new Star Fox game. And that's why we haven't heard anything, because it's from Platinum Games. We never know what Platinum Games is working on. Ever. Like, you want to talk about leaks? Nothing leaks out of that studio.
Platinum might not even know what Platinum's working on.
So you think Nintendo will let
Justin
go
Bowman,
again?
let me correct you. Platinum made Star Fox Zero. Platinum made Miyamoto's Star Fox Zero.
Right.
That was a Miyamoto game. Shigeru Miyamoto ran
He
the ship
oversaw
from there.
that.
So just because Platinum Games made that game, they were the developer. It's kind of like Illumination Studios is making the Mario movie, but it's really Miyamoto's vision.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Zero is. I think because of Zero, they said, well, Miyamoto, you go do Mario, Platinum. You make the Star Fox game you wanted to
Distract Miyamoto over
You
here
wanted to
with
make.
the movie.
Miyamoto, you're busy. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it. Platinum, freedom. Full freedom. Do what you want. We trust you.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't tell me that after Astral Chain that they're just making Bayonetta 3 for Nintendo. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Nintendo keeps working with Platinum. There's another game from Platinum coming. I'm just predicting it's Star Fox. Maybe it's Astral Chain 2. Maybe it's something else, another new IP, because they keep doing new IPs with Nintendo. The Wonderful 101, right? Astral Chain, Bayonetta didn't start with them, but was a relatively new IP with Nintendo. Didn't buy the rights to it, but started paying for them to be made.
Mhm.
So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Could also be Astral Chain too. Like I think.
And for people wondering in the chat, is this rumor or speculation? Read the title of the video. E3 2021 speculation.
Oh yeah.
None of this is
No.
based on rumors.
Yeah.
This is just me tossing it out to the wind, like
Word
a fart in the
salad.
wind. I don't actually believe it's going to get announced. I have a faint belief it's happening, but I don't think it's getting announced. But all the obvious is done. We've already had the Breath of the Wilds covered. We've already had some of the 35th anniversary. We've had the Mario Karts thrown out there in case that's coming. We've had the obvious, the Kirby's, blah 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 blah. I'm going with the major ones, and this is where I don't know which studio's doing it. It might be what was the name of the studio that made Luigi's Mansion 3 that Nintendo just bought? Next Level Games.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Next Level Games. I think nothing to back this up, by the way. So this is complete and utter bullshit.
Pulling out of your rear end.
No. I'm pulling out of your rear end.
Oh, all right. Fair enough. Sounds like fun. Don't tempt me.
Next Level Games, new game after Luigi's Mansion 3 announced at this E3. A new Snowboard Kids.
Ooh.
Nintendo owns the IP. It vanished after the N64. It's coming back. Snowboard, not 1080. Snowboard Kids. Which, by the way, Nintendo owns 1080 as well. But Snowboard Kids. It's coming back.
I might have the heart attack this time.
Yup.
If that happens.
Yup. I pulled on a little bit with the F-Zero
And
on
I
Andre.
see where,
got Snowboard Kids
I see
pulled on
what you're
Eric.
saying. You pulled it out of
And
my
now I'm going to
ass.
pull on the heartstrings of all viewers everywhere. This actually does have a rumor for it, and it's getting announced at E3. All new virtual console service. I don't know what it's going to be called. Going to be announced. It's going to have this again. What it's going to have exactly is a bit speculative, but it's going to have NES, SNES, N64, and they're throwing GameCube on that bad boy, and Game Boy, and Game Boy Advance, and they're gonna stop at DS. They're gonna have some DS games, but they're not gonna have like much. They're not gonna make a big deal out of it because they're gonna kind of save DS for a little while. DS library is massive. So they're going to take their time to try to make sure that that's done right. And by the way, it's all going to run on emulators, but it's going to be a paid subscription service that you can optionally buy each individual game for, a certain price. If you're subscribed to the service, just like with Game Pass, you can get a discount on buying it. If you're not subscribed, it's full price. So say Ocarina of Time and the N64, that would be like what, $10? I can't remember what they were charging before. I think it was like 10 or 15. Maybe it was one of the $20 ones. They had some pretty expensive ones on the old Virtual Console. But anyways, it's going to be what it is. But if you're subscribed to the service, you can play it for free. Well, it's not really free. You pay it. You pay your subscription fee, or you can get like 25% knocked off the price, maybe 50% knocked off the price, and to buy it. So if nothing else, it gets you to subscribe to the service to get the games cheaper, and then you realize, look at this giant library of games. Why am I getting rid of my subscription service?
Yeah.
And then they keep you. So they got you
yeah.
to buy the games, but then they also got you to keep the service because it's such a great service. Getting announced.
Yeah.
This E3. In fact, that's what they're going to end. They're not going to end with Breath of the Wild 2. They're ending with this.
Oh. Ooh.
This is the big, we have one more
thing. Do they start with Breath of the Wild 2 then?
I don't know.
And then end it with the...
I don't know.
Well, Breath of the Wild 2 would be the second to last thing.
What if they do a double ending?
A double ending?
They do Breath of the Wild 2, right?
And you think it's the ending.
And then Doug Bowser comes on screen and he's like, how was that? Here's E.G. Anomo. He'll tell you a little bit more about the story, this and that.
Yeah.
You guys enjoyed that? Was that good? All right. Well, we got to get over to Nintendo Treehouse, but before we do,
one more thing.
One more thing is bigger than Breath of the Wild 2 at E3.
Yeah.
There's one thing.
Them doing Virtual Console correctly.
Yeah.
Now, some people aren't going to like that.
Fair enough.
This is the one thing I have stated so far that is not technically 100% speculation. I did a video on this over the weekend. We covered it briefly in a prior podcast towards the end. There's Samus Hunter talked to me behind the scenes and told me that she heard in October that Nintendo is working on a new Virtual Console system. It won't be called Virtual Console, but it's a new way to deliver classic games that's going to be happening in this current fiscal year. So it might not come out this year. It could come out early next year. And it would have, obviously, it mentioned NES and SNES, but she said other platforms as well. She didn't specify which platforms. But it would be beyond what the current Nintendo Switch Online has. It would be separate from Nintendo Switch Online, and it would be much more like Microsoft's Game Pass than it would be anything Nintendo's done in the past. And you will be able to subscribe and get access or buy the games individually. And Nintendo emphasized in the marketing material that it is important that gamers have the option to buy it individually. And you might go, why does Nintendo care about that? Look at Nintendo Switch Online. That was under former presidents, not under the current president who sees what everyone else is doing and wants a piece of that pie. And this is a service that can carry over from platform to platform to platform. Maybe there's still an issue with purchase games coming over. I don't know about that. That's something Nintendo has to sort out. That's always been an issue with Virtual Console is rebuying games every generation. But the actual subscription service, that could easily carry over platform to platform to platform. And maybe that's what they've been talking to Microsoft about.
Yeah.
Which obviously leads back to, is this going to be a partnership with Microsoft? Is Virtual Console going to end up as part of Game Pass? That I think is a bit too far.
Yeah.
Don't think Nintendo's going to do that. But
No.
I mean, maybe they will. If Game Pass comes to Switch, maybe that's the bone they throw to Microsoft. They say, fine, let people subscribe to our service, streaming through xCloud on your thing, but it's got to be a separate fee. It's not part of Game Pass. It's a separate,
Yeah.
That could be a thing. I'm not saying Nintendo's going that far. That seems a little bit too forward thinking for Nintendo.
I feel like the company that would hold back Game Pass from coming to Switch is Nintendo, not Microsoft.
Yeah, not Microsoft wants it on Sony, and Sony said no. So like, we haven't heard what Nintendo has said. Maybe there's a reason we haven't heard yet. But plus Nintendo just keeps everything close to the vest. I don't think they're actually going to put it on Game Pass, but I do think they're going to announce it this E3. If it's coming out this fiscal year, it could be a drop they do. There's going to be other Nintendo Directs this year. So it could be a drop they do in a different Direct. Especially if it's not coming to early 2022. That could be like a September, direct.
Yeah, it
or
feels like
something.
a September direct kind of announcement.
But
to
if
me.
it's coming this year, maybe it's coming this summer.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Talk about a bombshell drop. The one thing that's been rumored that I even have inner doubts about Samus Hunter on this. It's like the one thing she's told me that I'm like, Nintendo never does this right. You're telling me Nintendo's doing it right. Okay. You know what? I got to give the benefit of the doubt to the new president.
Yeah.
This is a new era. We haven't actually seen his overall impact on the platform yet. Everything's been stuff that was happening before he took over. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the president that gets it. Knows when to tell Shigeru Miyamoto, no. Oh, gamepad? Let me talk to the developers quick. None of our developers want it. No. Knows that, our developers are asking for 60 FPS? We gotcha. Switch Pro. It's coming.
Mhm.
That's launching under him. That would be all Shintaro Furukawa. Switch Pro, his baby.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, we don't actually know. Like, everyone gets mad, cranky at him because he doesn't appear in the Nintendo Directs. He's not that kind of person. He doesn't have that bubbly personality. He's not.
Yeah.
He didn't grow up in game development, right? He didn't grow up in marketing. He's a businessman.
Mhm.
He's a numbers man. Numbers men sometimes do really shady things, right? Andrew Wilson, CEO, does really crappy things because he's a numbers man, and it's made EA one of the biggest publishers in the world because of it. Clearly, he knows what he's doing. It just doesn't always look good to the gamers. But being a numbers man, but then also respecting the way Nintendo does business could lead to things like this,
Mhm.
where it's actually a benefit to everybody. And it's not going to cost Nintendo a bunch of money like Game Pass does for Microsoft, where they have to, throw all this money at third parties to put their games in the platform, and then also release their brand new games on their platform, which could gimp day one game sales. Nintendo doesn't got to worry about that because that's not what the service is. It's just taking advantage of games that aren't even available on the platform anyways, and making extra money off it. So that's going to end my predictions that's going to happen that involves Nintendo, at least. Right there. Is any of this stuff going to... I mean, Virtual Console is the only thing that actually has some backing behind it. But that's also, to me, like, I still don't believe it. I think I just want to believe it.
I really want to believe your F-03 theory. I just want to so badly.
There's the only evidence is that faint potential hint with the Min reveal, but it's like, then again, when it's announced, it's like, oh yeah, they teased. Though they gave you the old winky wink.
Mhm.
Man. So I don't know.
Think Nintendo needs another racer besides Mario Kart. Like, they used to have so many. Excite Truck, Wave Race.
All right.
The 1080 series is another kind of like similar sort of idea. There used to be Diddy Kong Racing.
Yep, Diddy Kong.
We need more than just Mario Kart.
Oh, by the way, if you guys want a little quick news update, I just saw that news just broke that the sequel, the new Sonic movie, just wrapped up production.
Oh, nice.
So that's supposed to be coming out later this year, but it's pretty much almost done. So that's really good. That's really good news for people looking forward to that. I actually enjoyed the first Sonic movie. I'm not here to really talk much about it, but it was better than I expected. And I mean, Jim Carrey is Jim Carrey, and this was awesome to finally see classic Jim Carrey come back. I mean, it was worth watching just for that if you're a Jim Carrey fan. All right. Our last topic. This is a tough one because it's something that I think we all know is happening, but it's not something we want to talk about. And Ubisoft has decided to just openly admit what's coming from their side. And it kind of sucks in a way because Ubisoft, for everything you want to say, we talked about how repetitive their games can be and all this stuff, how they kind of draw them out. Maybe they're a little too long. Maybe they should cut some of the side quests, all this stuff, right? For all we want to say about that, Ubisoft tends to make a lot of high quality AAA games that release every single year and really please single player audiences. Now, they still have multiplayer aspects, but single player, very happy with them, right? Assassin's Creed, primarily single player. There's multiplayer aspects sometimes, primarily a single player IP, right? When they have multiplayer games, they focus on the multiplayer. But when they have their single player, they focus on their single player. Well, here's the headline straight from Nintendo Life. It says Ubisoft has major free-to-play plans across all franchises and platforms. Okay, so they're going to do more free-to-play games like everybody else. What's the big deal? Who cares, right? Everyone's doing it, so of course they're going to do more free-to-play. Here's the exact quote from the chief financial officer, Frederick Duguet, in an interview, or actually said this in an investor's call. We've taken time to learn from what we did last year with Hyperscape. We're also learning with the launch we'll be making on Roller Champions, which, by the way, that's coming to Switch.
Huh.
People might have forgot about that game. That's actually coming to Switch. We've been learning a lot with Brawlhalla. Remember, these are all smaller games. Listen up. And that is rapidly growing, and we think it's time to come with high-quality, free-to-play games across all our biggest franchises, across all platforms. So, goes on to say, this means less of a focus on big AAA single-player releases every year, more of focus on free-to-play games in these IPs. So think about what that means, what Ubisoft is admitting. And this is something we've quietly known this is happening across the industry. And I don't have any problem with free-to-play games in general.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how they monetize. I don't care if it's gacha mechanics. I don't care if it's season passes, like all the what are they called? The Fortnites and the War Zones and all that jazz. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on what that genre is called. Anyways, the point is, like, I don't have a problem with yeah, there you go. I don't have a problem with the season passes, the DLC, the microtransactions in free-to-play games, just like I don't have a problem with it on your phone. I have zero problem. Like, people hate phone games. I don't know why. A lot of these are super fun, despite the microtransactions and everything. Mm-hmm. That's how they make money. If the game is free to download, they got to make money somehow.
Right.
They're not just giving you a free game. If they don't make money, they can't make more games. So I don't have a problem with those monetization methods in free-to-play games. The problem is when you get into the AAA industry and you start to have less of the big AAA Spider-Man games, Miles Morales as an example, the Horizons, the Zeldas of the world, even the Halos, which is multiplayer but also has a single-player campaign. And you start to see we're eliminating all of that to focus on free-to-play games, chock full of microtransactions and gacha mechanics, which, again, don't have a problem until it affects the ability to get other games. Like, as an example, do I have to worry about the next Assassin's Creed game? Is there going to be some free-to-play multiplayer assassin game? And it might be cool. It might be fun. But I might not ever get a new regular Assassin's Creed game? What if that Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle 2 game that's speculated and rumored out there, what if it's also a free-to-play game?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely room for them to make more free-to-play games. I don't think that's
I don't have a problem. Like
bad.
Apex Legends, no issue. Apex Legends isn't preventing Battlefield from coming out. To the credit of, just like Call of Duty Warzone, like with Activision, they're still having a new Call of Duty come out this year. So other studios are doing free-to-play, but they're not slowing down their other games to do it. They're like, we're going to do it in addition.
Right. It's not
Ubisoft is the first that's like, actually,
we're just doing it in spite
we
of.
might be slowing down and doing this and focusing on this. And I just think, again, I'm sure the games will be good. I don't question they're going to be good. We've seen AAA studios attack free-to-play, and the games are good. Apex Legends is good. Warzone is good. Brawlhalla, it's still pretty good. These games are good. I don't want to lose the rest to just have these kind of games. It's kind of like on your phone. There are paid games on your phone that are way higher quality than the ones that are free to play. I don't want to lose the paid games to just have free to play someday. Now, Nintendo's not going down this route. I'm not talking about I'm talking about the rest of the industry on the whole. And who knows, Nintendo might go down that route eventually. If they ever get a major Pokemon Go like success on a phone, who knows how that's going to impact the whole company of Nintendo.
Right.
Thankfully, for people that are afraid of that, they haven't had a major, like Fire Emblem Heroes is the closest they've had. And when you look at their revenue charts, I mean, it's way down the list. So, I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on this and its impact on potentially the rest of the industry? Because I feel like we've already seen this shift happening. No one's just openly talked about it in this way.
So
Right.
it's interesting, right? So like we look at like I'm gonna come from like the Nintendo perspective of things, right? you look at games like Animal Crossing and Pokemon Sword and Shield and Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. These games are all 20 plus million sellers. We haven't really seen Nintendo games sell this well, this consistently before. And I feel like as the industry sort of moves forward and there's a lot more games that have microtransactions or free to play games, which isn't inherently bad. There are some really good free to play games. And I think if Ubisoft handles things correctly, they can still pick and choose and still have some of those non free to play, big, ambitious single player games. They'll just be a little bit less and more free to play games, which may be very fun. But my point is that with this growing prevalence of games more like that, more online sector games of that nature, when the big single player games do come out, it's going to be the companies that can really hit them out of the park that will be the most celebrated, they'll get the most attention. So there'll be more importance on the next big Zelda release because then it'll be more rare. It won't just be, oh, okay, sure, Nintendo has their big medieval adventure game, but the thing is, what's going to be in the case is that there won't be as many big medieval adventure games from other companies, so there'll be more focus placed on Zelda. So that's kind of how I feel things may turn out. More focus on the ones that still do exist, not just with Nintendo, but Nintendo. And hopefully companies like Ubisoft that at least do a good job of creating really fun free-to-play games and still having a few of those more ambitious AAA single-player style kind of games.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's what people fear. Less of what we love, more of another market that loves it. I get there's probably going to be a bit. Like, Ubisoft isn't saying we're done, right? Like, we're not going to make any of these games. Just less. They have a reliance on like 3 to 4 of these kind of games a year. Now we're going to rely on that less and focus more on free-to-play. And I get it's when you hit on free-to-play, I mean, the revenue is immeasurable. Fortnite has made Epic into a behemoth.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's immeasurable. Like, literally, what could you imagine 5 years ago? Epic going toe-to-toe with Apple in the courtroom?
Yeah.
Like, it would just be unimaginable because Apple is and they're still a bigger company. But Epic has the money to have the lawyers to draw out a long lawsuit like this and try to fight for what they think is right. Now, I know not everyone agrees that what they think is right, and that's fine. I'm here to,
right,
tell you what to think in the Apple versus Epic thing. I don't know that anyone's right in that case. I think everyone has flaws in what they're doing. And I also think the entire court case so far has been a complete joke and has nothing to do with what the lawsuit's actually about. It's like from both sides. What both sides are arguing has nothing to do with what the lawsuit's about. It's weird. And I think it's happening because the court system literally does not understand video games at all. So like, there's a fundamental... The legal system doesn't even know what the hell's happening. I have no idea which way this court case is going to go. But I do worry that more free-to-play equals less of the other things. And from Nintendo's perspective, not as big a deal, only because Nintendo doesn't really have a lot of games. I'm not going to say they don't have, like Rusty's Real Deal Baseball back in the day, that was free-to-play. They have microtransactions and stuff in it. So Nintendo has dabbled in this, but not to like a major scale and nothing. And they don't have anything that's been like super successful as a free-to-play. Like even the mobile phone games, none of them have been like they're successful enough to exist, but they're not like, again, Pokemon Go. They don't have that mega. Oh, we've done this now. We've seen the numbers. That's where we want to be. So
we may not have to worry
third
about
parties
Nintendo
have
going down that road.
Like Ubisoft hasn't done it yet with a major game, but they've done it with enough smaller games. They've seen enough success from those games to realize, man, can you imagine if we took a known IP and did that? Look what Call of Duty Warzone's doing right now. One of the few known IPs to go straight into, that genre. And look how well it's doing. It's slowly rising up the ranks, and I think it might even be the most played in that genre right now. Despite the fact that new Call of Duty's coming out. Doesn't seem to affect Warzone at all. Apex Legends, not as successful as Fortnite and Warzone. Definitely successful enough for EA to keep supporting it. Successful enough to bring it to Switch. Where, it doesn't play that well on Switch. There's still a bunch of kiddos out there who only have a Switch that are playing Apex Legends right now. So, I don't know what it means. It just seems like the future of the game industry is in a transition period, not just with this, game streaming. Game Pass. These are fundamental differences that 10 years ago, we would have never thought about any of this stuff. And yet here we are. And while Nintendo seems least affected because they're doing the least amount of things, Sony seems not as affected yet, although Sony does have subscription services out the ass. It's still one of those, what does this mean for the future? And I don't know. And is it a future I'm going to look forward to? I don't know. Like I always say in cases like Game Pass, man, that makes gaming so much cheaper for me. Like I don't have to spend $60 a pop every game that comes out on Xbox I want to play. Heck, I didn't even have to buy MLB The Show this year. Like that's huge. Like I'm saving money because of Game Pass. But like, is that good if the whole industry went that route? If like, is it really good that all, TV is now split up between 1 billion different platforms? Yeah, we still have cable TV, but now we have Netflix doing their own shows, Hulu doing their own shows, Amazon's doing. Before, you wanted all the movies, you go to the movie theater or you buy them when they come out. You want all the TV shows, you go and you have a subscription to cable. Now, you want all the TV shows, you need to be subscribed to 30 different services.
Right, which actually almost makes it
more expensive.
Way more
including
expensive,
basic cable.
Yeah.
If you really want everything.
Yeah.
I mean, sports right now is the big thing holding up basic cable, and even that might go away someday because there's plenty of live TV services that are offering streaming versions of that.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying they're good, but they do have them. I use it.
Well, yeah.
Here's the thing. I have Spectrum. I have them for internet, and I have them for cable. The reason I have them for cable is I've been through some of these other streaming services. It's not quite as good. But I can't remember the last time I have one cable box in my house. Can't remember the last time I used it.
Mm-hmm.
I use the Spectrum app in my house on all my devices and watch all my TV through it. I have an Apple TV to watch 4K Spectrum. That's the only way they offer 4K right now in my area. On my TV. I don't have any problems for the most part. Hardly ever. I watch Bucks games, Packer games. We just watched Brewers game while we were doing this podcast.
Yeah.
No issues. There was no drops. It didn't stop.
Yeah.
Now, granted, a little different. I have extremely good internet in my house, which is why I'm not as worried about issues during my live streams.
Still a little bit more slightly delayed than if you were actually watching it on.
Well, yeah, if you're there in person, but even TVs always had delays too. So it's not a delay that like sometimes you get an update on your phone on a score and then it happens.
Right.
It's like okay, so it happened like 30 seconds ago.
Right.
Whatever. It's good. It's close enough.
But
right?
yeah.
And TV has delays too.
No, but I think
not as much.
If you have satellite, there can be issues with the weather.
Satellite, yeah.
Yeah.
I've had satellite before.
Well,
Satellite's great for some cases, but it's also it's supposedly gotten better.
If you have Dish Network right now, you wouldn't even be able to get Brewers or Bucks games.
Yeah, well, that's contract disputes.
Well, no, I know for sure. So, and that's the other part too. Is it, to a certain extent, it almost gives a little bit more powers to the TV networks themselves too, because they have a few more options to, you don't want to pay our price. Well, these guys are, these guys are, these guys are.
And by the way, that's all about competition.
Mm-hmm.
I think competition in general makes things better, but it's also, hey, things are a lot more complicated than they used to be when you want to watch everything. Like, as an example, I saw a review for what is it that I'm watching right now? I'm watching it on Netflix. It's a superhero show that I didn't even know existed until I saw the season review. I think on IGN or whatever. Jupiter's Legacy, and I sat there and I saw the headline for Jupiter's Legacy, the superhero show, and I'm like, oh man, which platform is it? And do I have it?
Yeah, right.
What one am I about to subscribe to now that I'm not subscribed to? Oh, because like example, The Boys isn't on here. The Boys is on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
Love The Boys.
Oh, The Boys is great, by the way.
Really
and by the way, I had Amazon. The nice thing about Amazon Prime is I had it anyways for shipping purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really great that they tied in their service with it. It's kind of nice that it feels like a bonus more than anything, which is cool. And there are some legitimately good shows on Amazon Prime. The Boys being one of them. But there's some other ones too. There's the one cop show I keep watching. I don't remember what it's called now though. It's in my watch list. I'm trying to finish that up. I got one season to go. Some LA cop thing. Anyways. The 8th Arc chimed in with a $5 Australian super chat. Thank you so much, man. Sorry it took a while to get to it because you are asking something relevant or making a relevant comment here. You say, it just means free-to-play DLC every year instead of a new release. The only difference in Ubi is that instead of realizing the $60 entry is the barrier, there's no real change. Are you sure there's no real change? Now look, Assassin's Creed has microtransactions, right? Has paid DLC and has microtransactions, right? And what he's basically saying is instead of charging $60, just release the same game and have microtransactions and DLC. But here's the thing: the real change is because you're not doing a $60 upfront fee, you're not getting a complete game. No one likes to talk about that with free to play. Almost none of them are complete when they come out. You're not getting a complete game because what's the point of free to play? To keep you playing for years and years and years. There's no end.
Right.
I'm still playing Fortnite.
Yeah. The point of free to play is there's no end, which means there's no complete game. Which means that's the big difference. The next Assassin's Creed game, they don't charge $60 up front. You're also going to end up with 1/3 of the content you would get in the last Assassin's Creed game because they're going to give it to you in slow updates that happen over the course of the next 10 years. They're going to turn it into a service because that's what free to play games are. They're services.
Right.
Do you ever need to spend money? No. But are you going to get to experience the whole game if you don't? No. Now, some games are different. Multiplayer, like Fortnite. What's brilliant about that genre is you can legitimately play those games and essentially have no competitive advantage if you spend money or not.
Mm-hmm.
If you're good at Fortnite, you're good at Fortnite. It doesn't matter what skin you're using. Yeah, sure. There are strategic advantages to certain skins. Like there's a skin in Call of Duty Warzone that's basically blacks out your character that obviously gives you a competitive advantage in a darker game like that where you can kind of hide a bit better. So yes, there's competitive advantages to certain things, but it doesn't make you a better player. And that's why those games are actually blowing up, those Battle Royale games, because yeah, spending money doesn't make you better. It just makes you look cooler.
Yeah.
But that's not what happens in these games. I'll give you an example. NBA 2K. Love my NBA 2K games. They have a single player game mode in it. They have held back, like when they debuted that single player mode, it was awesome. Today, good luck having your created player ever become even an average, a 75 overall player in the game for his career by the end without spending hundreds of dollars. They have gimped it so bad that you can't even enjoy it unless you're willing to spend a bunch of money. And that's what we're talking about. The effect here is when you go free to play, and that's not a free to play game, but when you go full free to play, that's what it is. If it's a single player experience, how do they make money? By gimping you so bad you have to spend money if you want to have
the kind
fun.
of game they just wouldn't buy then.
But I mean,
that's the nice thing about NBA 2K is that's just one mode in the game. If you just want to play games online or franchise mode, you can still do all that. That's why I never really get mad at like Madden Ultimate Team and all that. The only thing I get mad about Madden Ultimate Team is that I feel like their focus on that takes them away from improving franchise mode.
Right.
But you still have your franchise mode. You still can get ranked and play online matches.
Right.
So like the base modes that you originally were buying the game for are still there. These are like additional modes that you could just ignore. But still, you can say, well, I just won't buy games like that. But here's the thing, you won't have to buy them. They're free. And you won't have the option to buy a game. You won't, like, as an example, there won't be an option to buy a full Assassin's Creed game anymore.
Right.
This is the Assassin's Creed game. You want to play Assassin's Creed, that's it. You either go back and play the classics, which they then reborn, they make them born again with remasters that end up just being more services.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. And people justify this because of how good it is. But it still bothers me to this day. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Amazing remake. Why the hell do I have to spend more than $60 to get the full game when I got the full game back in the day for that price? Don't even have the full game. It doesn't exist right now. You pay for part of the game. Now, not saying it's not worth the money. That's personal preference.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when you buy Final Fantasy VII Remake right now today, that is not the complete game. You are buying $60, maybe more, if you want all the extra little ditties with it, again, because they found a way to extra little ditty you in that game as well, just for part of the game. A fantastic part of the game. But you know in your mind, that's not all of Final Fantasy VII. There's going to be a part 2, there's going to be a part 3, and all the parts are going to end up being $60 a pop.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to end up paying almost $200 for what back in the day, you just spent one price, got the full game at launch. And again, that's not even free to play, but that's kind of what happens with free to play. They don't give you everything.
Mm-hmm.
They make you pay more and more and more to get it. So sure, it's more like Nintendo, or there was some company that labeled it as it's not free to play in a lot of, it's free to try.
Right.
It's a
free to
you
start.
Can download, free to start. You could play for a couple hours and it seems great, and then you hit a paywall. Or the game gimps you so much that it's basically a paywall.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I
And
did
that's
like
the major issue
the
then.
Dragon Quest 11S demo that you could play it for like 20 hours or so. And it's just a demo, right? But if you decide to buy the game, you continue on from what you did in the demo.
Yep. And the 8th hour brings up a point like, hey, slow updates over a number of years. That's what Animal Crossing and Splatoon. You're right. They don't charge you for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's included in your initial price of the game. So you spend $60 up front, you know you're getting updates for years. And that's just part of the game. It's not like, imagine instead of this, Stark, Splatoon 3 comes out. Free to play. Don't have to spend $60. But you want all the maps? That's $15-$20 here. You want to unlock more weapons or more different types of weapons in your weapon tier?
Ooh.
Ooh,
Different costs.
that's another $5. You want different costumes? $3 to change your hat. $5 to get a new shirt. That's how they get you, and you end up spending way the hell more than $60.
Yep.
How do you think Fortnite makes money?
Yep.
You end up spending way the hell more than $60 than you would if they just charged you $60 and gave you free updates. The way Nintendo's doing it is kind of counterintuitive to what the market's doing. The market is saying, oh, you're doing updates for years. That's a free-to-play game that you charge for all these items along the way that makes people end up spending way the hell more than $60. Nintendo's like, no, just give us 60 and we're guaranteeing all this stuff in the future. It's a very
Nintendo
different
can get away with
strategy.
it though, because their merchandising is just so strong, right? They make so much money from that.
Mhm.
And their software sells really well, and they have great install rates. Like what I think right now the ratio is like 1-7 Switch owners to how many games they've bought. And I only imagine it's going to get better as the generation goes on.
And
so Nintendo can afford that. Other companies can't.
And I have a brief response to Serial in the chat. Shout out. See, I don't just read super chat stuff. It says each part is like a full game, though, and that's probably in reference to Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
I understand that argument. But you know when you get to the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, that's not the end, and you know it. You already know what the end is because we have Final Fantasy VII. Go buy it right now. Go buy it on all platforms. It's on Switch. It's on Xbox. It's on. Go buy it. You know it's not the end. Like, just because a new person who's maybe never played the game sees it as, oh, that's a complete game, and this next one is just Final Fantasy 7.2. It's a second Final Fantasy 7 game. This is a third one, but that's not factually what it is. Factually, they cut up the game into sections because they couldn't get it all made at once, and they knew they could take advantage of consumers and sell them partial games. Not saying the partial game's not fantastic. Absolutely, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Not shitting on the game. I'm shitting on the delivery method.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to pay $180 or more to finish a game. To finish Final Fantasy VII, you're going to end up spending $180 or more if you buy them every time day one. Think about that.
I personally
That's
didn't
insane.
like 7 Remake that much because when I played it, it felt like there was a lot of padding. And I just kind of want to speak to your point a little bit more. So like just for perspective, right? Let's say Nintendo does someday reimagine Ocarina of Time, right? Where they go back to Ocarina of Time and they remake it with like a Breath of the Wild open air kind of style engine. It's a super epic, amazing thing. They add more side quests, a few more dungeons. They put things in between, right? Sounds amazing. But to kind of compare it to Final Fantasy VII Remake, say that the entire child part of the game, the first 3 dungeons, that's one game. And then the rest is a future game. How would you feel about that? I would feel like, oh, like you look at how much content Breath of the Wild offers you, right? Like that's hundreds of hours of gameplay. I would feel like they kind of skimped a little bit. Even though 7 Remake is a objectively a great game, it's what you can take like 30-40 hours. Like that's not a short game, but I'll also tell you there's other Japanese RPGs out there that can last you 100+ hours, and that's not out of the ordinary. So, there's some interesting differences there.
It's like people are going to justify it because, like, oh, each one feels like a complete game. There's enough content there to justify it. You're right, and there's enough content in Breath of the Wild to justify charging you $200, but they're not charging you $200. There's enough content in Dragon Quest XI that do the same thing, but they're not. They give you the full, complete game for that one price. This is not what has happened with Final Fantasy VII Remake. They are splitting it up. And again, this goes to the bigger context of, hey, the video game industry is changing. This is just another example of a change that right now we don't have any other games doing this, but remakes like doing a thing we've never really seen before. And I'm sure there's some other obscure game that maybe split it up between two parts. I don't know, but again, this is all about the changing gaming. Like, this is the way gaming is. This is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Square is getting away with it. They're selling millions and millions and millions, so they're going to get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
When there's that first free-to-play Assassin's Creed game comes out, it's going to have 100 million plus players.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen. And they're going to make way more money off of that than they ever made off any other Assassin's Creed game before.
Which is really going to dissuade them from making an actual full-born...
I'll give you an example. This year, if the new Call of Duty bombs while Warzone is killing it, it's
Call of
just going to
Duty's
be
going free to
Warzone
play.
moving forward. And they're going to fire 18,000 employees because of it. Because they're going to focus on moneymakers.
Or they're going to go Call of Duty free-to-play.
I mean, it's not like Activision doesn't already know what you can make off subscription fees and other stuff. They have Blizzard. They know about World of Warcraft. It's like they obviously know how to. Warzone's killing it. Like, again, not knocking those games. I play World of Warcraft still to this day. Warzone's fun. I've tried it out. Warzone's fun. I've got no problem. It's just what's going to be the consequence of these games someday. Because there's going to be. We saw the consequence on phones. When's that consequence going to hit AAA gaming? And Ubisoft is kind of saying, hey, we're going to be the first ones that, like, it's really going to change us. Now, on the opposite end, if those free-to-play games bomb, then Ubisoft will quickly tuck their tails and go back to what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But, and again, Ubisoft's not saying they're done making, normal games, just they're making less of them. And that, to me, is a fundamental change in the industry from a studio that I actually really enjoy their content.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it feels a bit samey, but like Immortals Phoenix Rising, that was Ubisoft. That was crazily creative, clearly inspired by Breath of the Wild, and a ton of fun. I love the comedy in it. I love everything about it. And then they released that DLC for it, and the DLC was like a whole new game. It was awesome. That's the kind of stuff that goes away when you focus on free-to-play.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the kids are going to love free-to-play because kids always think, oh, I don't have to pay anything. And then you realize, oh, yeah, you're using mommy and daddy's credit card and you're really paying a lot. But, and by the way, everyone thinks, oh, it's all about the whales. It's not about the whales. It's not about the whales. For some games, absolutely. Some phone games, yeah, there's like, 0.5% of the community lifts up the entire game in terms of finances. But that's not the case with a lot of these games. We have seen with Fortnite, I see kids in elementary schools talking about virtual currency. You have to spend money for that. These kids don't have jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think that money comes from? These are kids. It's being ingrained in kids today that this is what it should be. The way it's delivered on phones, the way these bigger battle royale games do it. This is the way it should be. I'm a little. I think it's okay for me to be a little afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Nintendo. What's cool about Nintendo is I think they're the last bastion of fully giving into something like that. Only because, again, Nintendo is making so much damn money doing games the way they're doing it. Most ever. They have the most ever in their coffers right now. They are making, as of this last fiscal year, more money than they made during the peak years of Wii and DS. Think about that for a moment. One platform making them more money in a single year than they made on prior best-selling platforms ever for Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
From one platform. Nintendo has $9.2 billion in the bank. They refilled their coffers after just spending $3 billion 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Refilled it, and they're going to be at 10 billion, 11, 12, 13, easily by the time Switch is done. No problem.
Unless they go on,
They're the richest company in Japan.
Spending spree.
They're the richest company in Japan. Not the biggest company. Not necessarily with the most assets, right? Sony's a bigger company. Some of these car companies are bigger companies. But richest. No other company can reach into the bank and show the kind of zeros that Nintendo can.
It's exciting when you think about them using that money for R&D. Like, what can they come up with?
Like,
You look at what
they almost
accomplished
put
with
$1 billion
Breath of the Wild
in
and Switch.
R&D in this last year. Like, that's insane.
Like, what will Switch 2 be? Like, what kind of technology is this going to amount to? Like I think Switch, what they have accomplished with it, with how flexible it is incredible. Yeah, I have to wonder, what they're going to do with some of their games. Mario Odyssey with that engine is so special. With Breath of the Wild and what they've done, that's so special. What are we going to see with Metro Prime 4? Is something there going to really kind of blow our minds in terms of the innovation and from a gameplay perspective? Like, it's exciting to think what Nintendo could come up with, especially if they invest a lot into research and development for both their software and their hardware moving forward.
Oh yeah, totally agree there. So I don't know, Eric, what are your thoughts on how gaming's shaping up today and what the future is going to look like? Are you excited about that future? Do you think I'm way off base?
No, obviously I'm kind of with you on that one. It does scare me that the only options are going to be the free to play, and we're not going to have anything, like a normal, what we consider a normal game anymore. And it's you hit those as there's the two different types of kind of the free to play, and as long as the majority of them kind of go down the road of you don't necessarily have to pay, you don't have to pay to win, but a lot of them I have a feeling are going to go down the road of, in order to even enjoy this game, you're going to have to pay some sort of money. And that's the part that always sucks, is the pay to win games. And those are, I just get extremely frustrated with some of those games, and because I've played a few of them, and it's just like, this is just dumb. Because you go into some of these matches.
This hasn't yet. I don't think this has been brought up on a single new Nintendo Prime podcast. Tap Sports Baseball.
Yeah.
Now, somehow they've gotten better. I have not spent a dime, and my team is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they heard the criticism of the prior ones. I have no idea. So it's actually kind of nice. But it's also one of those, that's also because I'm not at the upper levels, where you got to level your guys to a certain point, and it costs 1,500 gold per level, and then you got to spend money. So it's like they're letting you get a fast start, but it's a hard finish.
But to a certain extent, though, with that too, is you're not playing necessarily head to head.
Well, you can.
Yes, you can. But, where some of these, like, let's say, I play Phone Destroyer, South Park Phone Destroyer. That's still a head to head, and you can kind of see some of these that you get into a match, and you absolutely have no chance, and that makes the game not fun.
I still to this day don't understand why you play that game more than you play like the Stick of Truth and the other. I don't know, because
my phone
games are so good.
The reason why is because my phone is handy, and I can play a quick game at work.
Someone needs to learn to bring their Switch with them at work.
It's harder to.
It's a little bit harder to get away. A little bit harder to
go like this than it is to leave my phone on my desk and just kind of do this.
I mean,
granted, not that anybody's at the office, but
your Switch looks like a phone. You just set it on your desk like this,
and then
detach the Joy-Cons
and play under the
detach the Joy-Cons and just
No,
I've done it before.
Right. No,
I'd be like, Andre's about to say he's done it.
Very snugly in your hands. You can just be like,
you can palm those.
I know.
You have them.
I know. But some to me feels different with playing a phone game.
It's a good
phones
are still more
versus like an actual.
Yeah, I'm not knocking. I just said like
one-hand gameplay.
You would love these games. They are so good.
Right. No.
I got both of them on my Switch, man. I got to give you my account sometimes so you can play them. They're so awesome.
Right. No. And part of me also feels a little bit less like guilty playing like a phone game versus
because you're not meant to spend hours on it.
An actual like.
And then
major
you
console
go on your
game
phone and you switch and you swipe it down. And you look at your playtime. And you're like, oh, I played that thing for 7 hours during work today.
Right. Yeah. No.
Maybe I should feel guilty about that.
Right. You know what I'm saying? But and I'm not saying it's right. But part of me feels less guilty playing a phone game.
By the way, everybody sneaks playing phone games at boring times at work. That's nothing new.
Right. But so that's kind of where I'm at with that. As long as it's free to play, and you can. It doesn't feel like you have to pay to enjoy the game.
What? I pay to enjoy everything I do.
Yeah, right.
I have children.
Where you start getting into some of these matches, and then the more matches you get into, the farther you get along, all of a sudden you're realizing you have absolutely no chance of winning, no chance of having fun because, you haven't paid anything. those are the ones that scare me the most. And it very well could end up in a lot of games going in that direction.
Making it rain. They want you to make it rain all over them. Everyone's billionaires, right?
Yeah.
We can all just piss away money.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you that I personally don't really like mobile games. And it's not to sound like a hypocrite, because I also am guilty of using my phone all the time, and I'm playing games on them. I usually play like a lot of like brain teaser kind of games, puzzle games,
Mhm.
things of that
Yeah.
nature.
Yeah.
But I wish I loved the Nintendo mobile games, but I really don't. Like they seem to be of higher quality than most mobile games, but I try them for a little bit, and after a couple tries, I
I
usually
don't
give up
think
on
they're
them.
that. Like, here's the thing. I think they're high quality. And Mario Run, it's fun
Yeah,
for like the first 5 hours, and then you're just done. It's not like it doesn't really keep you wanting. It doesn't grip you and keep you playing. Like Fire Emblem Heroes, it's fun, but then like I don't know. I think what happens is we like I could play this or I could play Odyssey. I could play Fire Emblem Heroes or I can go play Three Houses. What feels like a better experience to you?
Mhm.
Whereas a lot of other mobile games, there aren't really alternatives, direct alternatives. Like if you're playing Candy Crush or you're playing some other game like that,
that's
they're
it.
all kind of the same, and there's not really that big of an alternative in terms of like getting a fuller experience from it, right? So like it doesn't feel as bad. You know, play some of those brain teaser games. There was Brain Age at one point, but like besides those, like there's just not alternatives. Whereas like you play these, I got Animal Crossing on my phone, right? Yeah, but I also have I also have it on
Mhm.
Switch. Which one would I rather play?
Yeah, there's a better version on Nintendo consoles.
I
So
think
you're like,
that's what
I'd
makes
rather just
them
play the real
lesser.
thing.
Yeah, I think that's something Nintendo didn't anticipate. Is that like you really should focus on new games that you don't have big console
I mean,
versions of.
And it's not that I think Nintendo should stop making mobile games, because I think it's proven that they do still sell. The mobile games still do well. It's all relative, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
not as well as Nintendo would like them to, but it still does well. And what it has shown is it's a great way to market their games and IP, and it gets people to actually buy the main stuff, right? So,
Oh yeah.
I personally am not too concerned about where the industry is headed. I do understand where you guys are coming from, like, because I personally would hate it if all we had were free to play games, not a lot of really cool, awesome single player games. But I also think that if that were to happen, if there were to be too much of a balance towards that direction, what's going to happen is that consumers are going to lose interest. I think there's always going to be a demand for that, and it's going to be fine. But to what I was saying earlier, what is going to happen though is that the ones that exist, the single player games that do exist, will be of a higher quality. The companies that do make them, they're going to be the companies that know they can put out one that's going to perform. So yes, there may be less of them, but the ones that are out there are going to be of a greater quality. And there may be more free to play games, but the interesting thing about that is because they're free to play, there's less of risk in terms of trying it out.
But let me throw this out there. Because there's lesser, quote unquote competitors of that single game. It's kind of your EA, where if you look at Madden, the quality of the next Madden doesn't get a whole lot better.
Mhm.
Because there's nothing forcing it to go forward. Where, nowadays there's things that are forcing these to go forward.
Yeah, I think
It
what
doesn't
you're saying is
necessarily
less
mean
options doesn't necessarily mean better games. It could just mean, hey, you want a AAA game that you spend $60 for and have a complete experience? Guess what? There aren't anyone else doing it anymore. So here
Yeah.
you go.
yeah, you get
And then we start
you get whatever
praising
crap
that game,
I've
or
put
almost
together.
over praising that game because hey, no one else is doing it. But
And-
really, it's not as good as it was when there was competition.
Right, and I'm not saying you're wrong either, but there's kind of two
Yeah, this is all
sides to
hypothetical,
every
guys, by the
fork,
way.
Sure.
and
Sure.
where it could be, yeah, they're better games because they have a little bit more time to work on them, but there's also the idea of they could be worse because what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I guess my thinking, and I understand what you guys are getting at. There are some game franchises out there that are almost repetitive with their consecutive entries because they have such a dedicated fan base that buys them every single year, like the Call of Duties and the Maddens.
Mhm.
But I feel like, and this is a mass generalization because to your point, there will be exceptions like that. But
Mhm.
overall, I'm not that concerned because I do feel like that if that does happen, what will be the end result is that people won't buy those games.
Mhm.
So people will buy the games that are of higher quality overall. That's my thinking. I just believe that the consumer will and make smart choices at the end of the day and invest what's worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm taking the
mean-
optimistic approach here.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
no, for
it's
sure.
okay.
No, no,
I
absolutely.
took the total
Yeah.
cynical
Yeah.
approach, so it's cool to have the
Yeah.
opposite. That's good. That's good. All right, let's get to the wrap up here, because we gotta wrap things up here. I gotta get some cleaning done and all that jazz here. But I want to thank AndresRestart for coming on the podcast. Do you have any future content you'd like to tease that people should check out?
Well, I appreciate the shout out and having me on, my friend. It's been a pleasure. In terms of planned content, there's quite a few things in the pipeline. I don't know when they'll come because I kind of react to news, right?
Sure,
So
sure.
sometimes if I have something I want to do, I kind of
News
push it off.
comes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I'll list off a couple ideas I have in the pipeline. I want to kind of talk about like the direction Pokemon is headed. I feel like we are headed in the direction of voice acting. You look at that Arceus trailer with the voice acting in that, and you look at
Nice.
Pokemon Snap, which actually has voice acting. So, I feel like perhaps we could be seeing more voice acting in future Pokemon games. So there's something I want to talk about that. I also want to put out a Zelda Theory video that's kind of talking about the return of Ganondorf and what it means about the Triforce, because it was missing in Breath of the Wild 1 mysteriously. I feel like maybe there could be something there for Breath of the Wild 2, with all three being there, Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf. So, those are some ideas I have in the pipeline. In terms of news or rumor-related things, I may be putting out a video just kind of detailing how good of a track record Samus Hunter is, right? So, those are some things I have in the pipeline.
Good stuff.
Today,
man.
I just put out a video talking about third-party games we could be seeing at Nintendo's E3, so check that out. My channel is linked in the description, and I'm on Just Restart, so thanks for listening.
Yep. And you can find Eric over on Twitter at emo8790. He's on it, but he won't respond to you. So maybe during E3 I'll convince him to respond a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit. If you guys tweet at him, especially if you're like trying to get my attention and it's not working,
for sure.
tweet at Eric during E3 and he'll bring it up to me.
yeah.
Hey, we got to talk about this.
Yeah.
You missed something, or we got to switch the stream over to something else. So yeah, because I'm gonna try to stay on top of everything, but I have a lot to keep organized. Eric right now is in charge of shipping, but that's after E3. Maybe I'll have him handle the email that people send with the addresses to ship things. Maybe I'll have you. I don't know. We'll figure it out. There's so much going on to organize still because I haven't even. I don't want to get there. We have a lot going on for E3. You're gonna want to check us out. You can also check out AndresRestart's all his E3 and speculation and future videos he just talked about. You can find me everywhere. I'm Nintendo Prime. Instagram, it's Nintendo_Prime. On Twitter, it's at Ninty Prime. But here's the fun thing: if you just type Nintendo Prime in the search in both of them, I'm the #1 result, baby. I should be like the only one in existence. We also have technically a website which might be used a little bit during E3. Not so much that we're going to be updating news to it, but I might be feeding certain things through it, including some of the giveaway stuff. So stay tuned for that. I'm still organizing how all the giveaways are going to be done. You do need to be there live during E3 to win. You cannot win if you're not present. So that's one thing I can tell you guys. And I can also tell you guys that I guess that's really all I can tell you right now. It's the only thing I'm actually 100% sure of. You got to be subscribed as well. I can't require you to subscribe to enter, but I can definitely say if you're not subscribed, you're not winning. I'll draw someone else. So be subscribed. That being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been a fun podcast. This was episode 8 of the Nintendo Prime Podcast.
And we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace out, guys.
See you later.